Apparently.
Dude, I'm so hyped. I'm ready for this. Been too long since football, bro.
It has been.
Notification
Okay.
for this.
All right, y'all ready?
Ready, ready.
All right, here we go in 3, 2, 1. We are live officially.
Folks, what is up? And welcome back to the Vol Talk podcast. And folks, it is finally football time in Tennessee once again. We are super pumped. I am pumped to be here with you guys to jump into the football season. This is the Vol Talk 2025 season preview for the 2025 volunteer football team. Vol Talk is an unscripted podcast about all things volunteer sports. But, gents, today we are all football because it is once again football season, and I am hyped, Austin.
Yes, sir. It's football time in Tennessee, like you said. Ready to get into it. We got a lot to talk about today. We're going to go position by position on today's show and just kind of go over what we think about the players on this roster and how they're going to mesh for the 2025 season. We're also going to give our watch list for the Vol Talk Awards. Blake, we started this last year kind of on a whim. We kind of, like you said, it's an unscripted show. But then we just randomly decided, you know what, let's do some Vol Talk Awards for the season. So we'll get into that and the watch list and what each award is. And then we'll give our predictions, man, what this team is going to do on the season, which is the exciting part of the show. Let's see if we can get back to the playoffs, if any of us have us doing that, and what the season's going to look like. So I'm ready for it.
I'm ready as well. Dakota, it has been too long since football, man, and we are back. And, there's a lot of unknowns coming into this season, but at the same time, dude, it's Tennessee football, and I'm just excited.
I am too. We got a taste of football last night from other teams yesterday, and that has made me even more pumped now. And it's put me on the optimistic train, which I'm rarely on. I now am a full believer in everything this season because I saw football happen yesterday. So that's all it takes for me to believe. I'm ready to break down the team and our expectations for the 2025 season, and I'm excited to get into it. And I appreciate you all having me on the show again.
Love it. Yeah. So, folks, you are here with myself, Blake. You are here with my brother, Austin, and special guest, Dakota. As Dakota just mentioned, we're happy to have you on, man. It's always fun doing these three-man shows. So, again, folks, welcome to the Vol Talk podcast. As Austin kind of laid out, we are doing everything season preview. So, we're going to go position group by position group, dig into that. We're going to dig into the Vol Talk Awards and our early watch list for those awards. And then we're going to give our season predictions, like Austin mentioned. So, jam-packed show for you guys. Can't wait to get into it. Folks, please, 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 first and foremost, jump in the chat, okay? The whole point of this podcast, again, it's unscripted banter. The way that works is we're just going to be talking about these subjects, and then you guys jump in the chat, and we're going to respond to y'all's chats. We're going to have you as a part of the conversation. So please join us in the conversation. Let us know what you think as we're going through each of these things. And then, of course, like and subscribe. We absolutely love the support that we have been getting on the channel heading into football season. We've been growing like crazy, and we can't thank you all enough for that. And so please do us a favor and jump into not only the chat, but also like and subscribe to the channel. It would really help us out and really help us grow as we head into this football season. So we really appreciate that. Folks, it is time. We're going to hop right into Austin. The first thing we're going to do is, again, these position group previews. And, we're going to kind of hop right into these things. We're going to kind of try to I'll be honest with you, folks. It might end up being a 2-hour show, 2.5-hour show. We're going to try to move through them quickly, but the three of us, we like to yap. Okay, so get ready for some yapping. Yap with us in the chat. We've already got some folks jumping in the chat here. Shout out to my wife, Rachel, already in the chat. Thank you, Rachel. Kevin is already in the chat. Shout out to Kevin. Good to see you again, Kevin. And then, of course, all night Ginger. Interesting. Love to see that. So, folks, again, thank you for jumping in the chat there. But again, gentlemen, let's go ahead and get into these position group previews. So the big headline this offseason was obviously the quarterback position, right? So we've got to start with quarterbacks. That's the thing that's on everybody's mind is the quarterback position. And Austin, you did the Lord's work. You hopped on a solo show late last Sunday night when the news broke that Joey Aguilar is officially named the starter heading into Week 1. So, gentlemen, we've got our starter. We've got QB1. But Austin, you and I have talked about the fact that, and I think a couple weeks ago when it was you and Dakota on a show, I think you all also talked about the fact that, hey, this might not be over. He's named the starter now, but we got to see what he's got, and we've got Georgia coming up early. So it's going to be interesting to see how far ahead Aguilar has set himself from Merklinger. Dakota, let's go ahead and hop into this position preview for the quarterbacks. How do you see the quarterback play playing out this season?
Yeah, I'm starting to buy into the Aguilar hype, and Austin's a big component for that because he's pointed out a lot of things on, seeing some highlights of Nico, the things he did poorly, and some of the things that Aguilar did well at his time at Appalachian State. And I think the thing that stands out the most for me with Aguilar is he's a bit boom and bust. But in an offense like that, we kind of lack the boom last year. Nico had a tendency to, if his first read wasn't open, he panicked in the pocket. And then, to be honest, he wasn't as good of a scrambler as he should have been. And he missed on a lot of deep opportunities, didn't give guys even chances to make a play. And a guy like Joey Aguilar, I think, is going to create more of those opportunities for the skill players that we have on this team. I think there could be more turnovers than we've seen from quarterbacks in the past, because that has been, and it might not happen, right? Because one thing that has been kind of consistent in Heupel's offense is it didn't really matter who was playing quarterback. Turnovers and interceptions are just not super common. And I think that if he can clean that up with Aguilar, he could be just all boom. But we may see a few more turnovers, but I'm fine with that. I think most Vols fans would trade, getting a guy a chance on those deep balls 8 out of 10 times, and if 2 of them get picked and 8 of them are huge plays, well, we would all gladly take that trade. So I'm excited to see what the explosiveness that he can add to the offense is making me pretty optimistic about what this group can do with Joey Aguilar at the helm.
Love to hear it. Love to hear it. Everyone is starting to jump on the optimism train heading into Week 1. Austin, are you in the same boat?
Yeah, I mean, I think the story starts with, right, this is the first trade in college football history, right? Like we trade Nico for Joey Aguilar from UCLA. Of course, Aguilar started his FBS career at App State and started off really good at App State. Blake, his first year at App State was phenomenal. And then he kind of tapered off the second year, but that resulted in his coach getting fired. It wasn't a great system. He didn't have a lot of talent around him at App State. Dakota brought up a lot of good points. A lot of things that Aguilar does well, Nico did very poorly. Now, listen, we're going to lose the tools that Nico had, right? And when I say tools, that means athleticism and arm strength. Aguilar does not have as much athleticism and arm strength as Nico had. And, that's why Nico got that 5-star rating. However, everything else, I think it's an upgrade, right? Between the ears, which matters so much as a quarterback, right? Being able to read defenses, as Dakota alluded to, going through your progressions, actually getting to your second progression on a single play. And then, Blake, one thing that we've touched on all offseason is the intangibles, the leadership qualities. Listen, it's no secret that the players on last year's team and the fans saw that Nico had a lack of leadership. Okay, he was not vocal. And Joey Aguilar is going to bring that to the table. Immediately, the first stories that we saw coming out of camp, Blake, was Aguilar's taking over the locker room. He's becoming best friends with everyone on the team. He's immediately become a leader on this 2025 Tennessee Vols, which is incredible, dude. He got here in June. He got here 2 months ago. He hasn't even been here for 3 months. It's amazing what he's been able to do. And listen, in Heupel's offense, he's going to be asked to do less at his position. It's an easier offense for quarterbacks. It's one progression, two progressions. And the problem with Nico last year, it's one progression and then Bell on the pocket. And Aguilar's not going to do that, Blake. He's going to go to 1 to 2, and he's going to stand in the pocket and actually make a throw downfield. And to Dakota's point, which was a phenomenal point. Listen, if we have 5 deep balls, right, which Nico last year, he would miss 5 of 5 deep balls, pretty much all overthrows, right? And at least with Aguilar, probably 3 of those are on target, right? And 3 of them are going to be touchdowns. Okay, 1 might be underthrown, but dude, one of the most OP plays in football right now is the underthrown deep ball, right? The underthrown deep ball results in a lot of DPI, defensive pass interference, and can get us first downs like that. And let's say the 5th one is an interception. Okay, that's fine. It's like an arm punt, right? In a lot of situations, if you're throwing deep down the field, if it's a 40, 50-yard throw through the air, that's an arm punt, Blake. So it's all good. It's just like punting the ball away. But at least 3 of them, you gave your guy a chance and they scored a touchdown. With Nico last year, dude, 5 of them are negative plays, all 5 of them. So I believe this year it's going to be more of those deep shots that are actually hit, and those open receivers are actually going to be given opportunities to make plays on the ball. Last thing I'll say, Aguilar is not scared to sling it. And listen, he doesn't have the elite level arm strength, but at least he's going to give his guys an opportunity. He's going to stand in the pocket, be tough in the pocket, and take hits. That's a lot of positives over Nico last year, Blake, and I think that's why ultimately Joey Aguilar as our starter is going to raise the ceiling of this 2025 offense.
Man, I love to hear it. I love to hear it. Raising that ceiling, because the offense was indeed the sticking point last season. We just couldn't get anything going on offense, and it comes down to the quarterback. It always comes down to the quarterback in some capacity if you can't get your offense going. And Austin, you and I talked, not necessarily on the show last year, but we did talk about, this idea that, man, does Nico have that between the ears situation that you're talking about, right? Can he progress through those reads? And you know what? Ended up being, you're talking about, Nico's one progression and then whatever. Sometimes it was one progression and then he runs out of bounds on 4th down in the final seconds of an Arkansas game. Right?
You're not going to see that with Joey this season, Blake. You're just not. He's
Exactly.
going to give his guy an opportunity to win the game. And it might be a pick, but at least you're giving your guy an opportunity to make a play in a situation where, again, if we win that Arkansas game last year, Blake, we're in the SEC championship. We're playing for a top 4 seed in the college football playoff, and Aguilar is going to give us those opportunities this year over Nico.
Absolutely. I agree with you. And that's what you want, is you want your quarterback to at least give your receivers a chance to make a play, because, I'm not going to jump the gun. We'll be talking about our receivers here in a little bit, but man, we've got talented receivers. Let them make a play. Now, Dakota, here's an interesting question. Okay. I've seen a lot of people, a lot of Vols fans who were, and I don't think they're necessarily still wishing that we had Nico, right? I think everyone is like, you know what? That was a bad situation that happened. Heupel made the right decision in moving on. But there's still some Vols fans that are like, hey, you know what? I think Nico would have progressed this year. So my question to you, Dakota, is, and this is a hypothetical, do you think Nico's progression is going to outweigh the upside that Aguilar has in what could be his final season in college football?
That was a really good question, man. I'm going to go with no. But here's the thing, is that, like Austin kind of pointed out at the beginning of his comments, was that Nico was a 5-star, right? Like, in terms of tools, athleticism, size, skill set, he is a bit more naturally gifted. So I wouldn't be surprised if Nico did progress this year. I would say my reasoning for saying no is that regardless of all the noise they try to keep out with him and his dad, I just don't know if actually playing football is the thing that he cares about most right now. And I think you have to do that. Plus, I think UCLA is not in good position this year. Like, that is just not a good surrounding cast. So I think it's going to be hard to imagine a scenario where he looks better. Like, he could maybe himself take a few steps forward. But with Aguilar, I think it'll be a noticeable difference. And one of the key things with that is big time throws. So, I know Austin's alluded to PFF at times as well, but that is one of the biggest indicators in terms of like how good you are at making tight window throws or making those deep balls. And Aguilar had 26 of those last year to Nico's 17. So like that is just a pretty drastic difference, like 50% increase in terms of how much more he's making big throws. And I don't think Nico's going to cover that gap in whatever he progresses this year. Now, the other side of that is he had more turnover worthy plays, but that comes with playing behind a worse offensive line and in a situation where he was forced to play hero ball constantly for App State. So it's a different environment entirely. But I think with the UCLA situation being worse, and I just don't think he cares about football as much as Joey Aguilar does, that I think Joey Aguilar, we will not be missing him. We won't be missing Nico. We'll be very happy with the guy we have.
Agree,
Blake,
Austin?
yeah, Dakota brings up a great time or a great point with the big time throws. I'm curious, Dakota, how many big time throws were left on the table for Nico compared to Aguilar last season? Because we've all seen the clip. Y'all have seen the clip going around social media. It's about a 5-minute clip of Nico just overthrowing receiver after receiver, missing deep ball after deep ball. And a lot of those from PFF would have been considered big time throws. So I'm curious, in Heupel's offense, when he's scheming guys open, Aguilar might have more opportunities to hit even more big time throws this year, and that's what makes it even more fascinating. But Blake, listen, dude. Little Vol talk lore for the people that don't know. Our dad is from Michigan, okay? Dad grew up in Michigan. He's from Michigan. So our secondary team was always the Michigan Wolverines. The only importance in that is that I have never in my life breathing rooted for Ohio State in a football game. On November 15th, 2025, I will be doing so, okay? UCLA Bruins, go to Ohio State. Go Buckeyes in that game. I hope they beat them by 70, dude. That's how much I'm rooting against Nico and UCLA this year. And listen, we went through the schedule. They're 6-point underdogs at home against Utah in week 1, Blake. Listen, I'm just saying they're going to be fighting for bowl eligibility this season, Blake. That's just the reality.
It don't look good at UCLA in that schedule, that Big Ten schedule. The Big Ten ain't the SEC, but it's close. It's one of those situations when UCLA plays Ohio State that I'm going to be. It's kind of like when Bama and Florida might play each other or something. I'm kind of hoping that the stadium just implodes, right? And they have to call off the game. And no one wins. But yeah, we'll see. Doesn't look good for UCLA in their schedule. And yeah, I agree with Dakota. I don't think we're going to be missing Nico. And it looks like chat agrees. Let's hop in the chat here. Let's catch up on chat. Thank you, Kevin. Thank you, Rick. Again, folks, if you're just tuning in, please jump in the chat. We want to know what y'all think. This podcast, we're all about chatting with you guys about these subjects. So hop in the chat here. Kevin says, I think referring to Nico, that was so huge. They believed in his talents, but not in him. I'm really surprised that we weren't worse after hearing all of that. It's Kevin. I think the defense, even now, I think we still underappreciate that defense last year because, man, that is why we got to the playoffs, was that defense. Then, of course, the running game and Dylan Sampson. Rick says Nico had a 32% completion rate when the pass traveled more than 20 yards in the air. I don't think it's unreasonable to expect better from Aguilar. I think that's a great point from Rick there.
It's a fantastic point, dude, because to Rick's point, Blake, that 32% completion percentage, that's with his receivers having 5 yards of separation most of the time. That's the problem. And yes, was there some drops in there? Just to be fair, sure, there were some drops here and there. But hey, the drop low light reel doesn't compare to the overthrow low right reel from Nico last season, man. So yeah, that's a fantastic point from Rick. And that's been my point, Rick, that I just feel like Aguilar, again, is going to raise the ceiling of this offense. He's going to hit more of those big time throws downfield because that's been his MO in college, right? And yes, it comes with some turnovers, but again, the X factor in all this, Blake, is Heupel's scheme. Can he coach those turnovers out of Aguilar? And then you just get the big time throws and you eliminate those turnovers.
Exactly. And Kevin also still in the chat here saying, how much better would that defense have been if our offense was just average?
Another great point. The chat today, Blake.
Yep. Exactly. A lot left on the table last year, and there was different blame to go around. Lance Hurd was
We'll get into that later. We'll get into that
straight
later,
to Lance
Blake.
Hurd, but he wasn't playing his best last year. The other, Campbell Jr., the offensive line in general, like you said, receivers had some drops, but at the end of the day, man, I mean, Nico only had he had
nine touchdowns,
nine touchdowns in SEC play. I mean, the proof is in the pudding, as we say down in the
Blake
South.
used to say on this podcast that the numbers don't lie, brother. The numbers don't
The
lie.
numbers, in fact, do not lie. They cannot lie. They tell the truth always. So that's the fact there. Guys, any other final thoughts on the quarterback situation heading into the season, and your thoughts on Merklinger and his backing up Aguilar or anything like that?
I'll just quickly touch on Merklinger. I looked up today, Blake, he's still 19 years old. Okay. So it was kind of a lot of expectations to expect him to come in and win this job. He's still extremely young. And I think he had a good camp. I think he looked good. And I think that means that we have a good backup on our hands, which is always really, really valuable, dude. You need a solid backup because, again, he's one play away, right? He's always one play away from getting in the game. So I think Merklinger is going to be an important asset going forward. And this season, we're probably going to need him at some point this year.
Yeah, two quick things on Aguilar. One from Austin's point with the big time throw thing is that those 26 that he had last year were probably not layups either at App State. So Austin's completely right. I wouldn't be surprised if he leaves the season with like 35, 40 big time throws because of how many layups he has from Heupel's offense plus his ability to make those. And then I alluded to it, but rushing wise, in terms of like grading and stuff, Aguilar was just better. So I think he's better at not turning a scramble into a negative play, which Nico would scramble, after his first read consistently, and then didn't really. He was kind of lackluster in that, which we saw him be really good at in the Iowa bowl game, and it just seemed like we never got much out of him from that. And then Merklinger, I'm going to reiterate what I said when Austin and I were on the show, and that's just this dude wants to be a Vol, and I think that can't be understated in terms of the fact that he knew that even with Nico transferring, they were going to go get another guy. He stuck around to be a part of the program and try to fight for that job. And so, I feel confident that if the reins need handed over to him at some point, that he's going to go out there and give his all. And I to Austin's point too, I think he's looked pretty good in camp. And I think compared to like past seasons when we were like cycling through a Maurer and a Shrout and we're just kind of like, God, these both guys just kind of suck. I think it's a more situation where he could go in there and still be good. And we'll be happy with the quarterback play we get from him.
Absolutely. Love to hear it, guys. Y'all have got me optimistic now for heading into the season. The quarterback play, it's good stuff. It's fun stuff, and we're gonna see right back here. I have on the board 6 days until kickoff, baby.
6 days.
Syracuse is on the clock, so we're gonna see what Aguilar's got in about 6 days against Syracuse. Can't wait, gentlemen. Can't wait. But that was just the first position group, y'all.
Hey, it's going to be the biggest, I'm sure.
It's going to be the biggest, but that was the first position group. We got a lot of other position groups to get through here. So
it's going to be a long show, baby.
Hey, buckle up, folks. It's a long day of Vol Talk here, Vol Talk Nation. So let's move now, Austin, to the running backs. So you've got a guy in Dylan Sampson, historic season at Tennessee. We lose him to the NFL. Wish him all the best. VFL, great guy. He's the kind of guy you want in your program. Dylan Sampson was, right? So you hate to lose a guy like that. But Austin, you and I have talked a couple times about, this running back stable. It could surprise us. We've got some great guys in this running back stable. You're looking at Deshaun Bishop, local kid from Carnes High School. Okay, if most of our viewers are probably from East Tennessee or at least familiar with East Tennessee, Carnes is right up the road. You got Star Thomas, the Duke transfer, and then you got Peyton Lewis, who was a 4-star prospect. He's a sophomore, and he has been getting some shout-outs in the preseason. In fact, Austin, you let us know that one of the coaches called him a Greek god.
Yes.
Which was a little weird. Still weird. But I mean, honestly, Austin, it's looking like these running backs. I mean, it could be a great stable this year.
Yeah, so the running back coach said Peyton Lewis looks like a Greek god without his shirt on. It's a weird thing to admit in a press
Kind of
conference and
weird.
tell everyone. But hey, listen, that just he's speaking to that fact that Peyton Lewis has transformed his body since getting here, which I mean always is a big emphasis for college coaches, trying to develop these young players into men. But yeah, you make a great point, dude. And I'll quickly touch on DSAMP. That's one of the biggest question marks with this team, right? Is like, how are we going to replace the great Dylan Sampson's production, who, by the way, is looking like he might start for the Cleveland Browns, already making an impact on the next level. So, not surprised at all. Dylan Sampson is going to be a phenomenal player in the NFL, in my opinion. So, how are we going to replace DSAMP? And like you said, it's going to be in the aggregate, right? We have three guys, three bodies that will be rotating through this season. You just mentioned them. Deshaun Bishop, which Deshaun Bishop's interesting. Like you said, local guy, 3-star out of high school, but he beat out 2 4-stars, including Peyton Lewis, last year to be RB2 behind Dylan Sampson. Now, Deshaun's big issue has been injuries. He's gotten hurt a few times since being at Tennessee, but he's been extremely productive. I think he had 6 yards a carry last year in his limited opportunities. So I think he'll be solid. Star Thomas coming over from Duke, like you said, Blake. Not a very highly touted transfer prospect. However, he did have 612 yards after contact last year. So that's interesting. That may mean he also is playing behind a bad offensive line and made the best of it. And then Peyton Lewis, I think, is the X factor in this room because he was a highly touted prospect. And let's not forget, I had to remind myself of this because Dakota and I were at this game and we left in the third quarter. But let's go back to the playoff game that we all want to forget. Peyton Lewis was phenomenal against Ohio State in the playoff game, dude, because again, Dylan Sampson was out in that game. So we had to replace DSAMP in that game, and he had 10 carries for 77 yards. Was really explosive. He was a speed star out of high school. Like that was his thing, was speed. But then he became like kind of like a bruiser in college. So he has a little bit of speed and power. So I'm very intrigued with what Peyton Lewis can be. But yeah, I think all three of these guys will be big features in the offense.
Yeah, and sorry, kind of catching up on the chat here. Kevin saying, man, oh man, we got some dudes in that backfield. If we rotate and keep these guys fresh, the running game is going to really punish defenses. So Kevin, right as we started talking about this, chat's agreeing in terms of this kind of replacing Dylan Sampson in the aggregate, as you keep saying, Austin. And so just, really solid kind of stable of guys. Rick says, I like Lewis over Bishop. I think he has a higher ceiling. And yeah, we could see that, this season for sure, as Austin's alluding to here. So Dakota, what's your take on these running backs and what do you expect out of them this year?
Yeah, I do think it's a combination of replacing DSAMP in the aggregate combined with a entirely new interior offensive line. But DSAMP did a lot of what he did last year with poor run blocking, right? So he made a lot of plays. So I think there's a chance that regardless of who's in the backfield, if the interior offensive line just plays better, then our run game can still be just as good. The running backs don't have to be as good as Dylan Sampson at that point. And they'd get the type of production, not obviously to the historic levels that he did, but collectively they could still get it done. And I do think it's an interesting trio. I'm really high on Deshaun Bishop, and yeah, Austin's right. He averaged like 6.1 yards per carry on 74 carries last year, which is pretty solid. If he can stay healthy, I do think he's a very elite at the low same thing that DSAMP, and like we've always had with running backs, so just that low center of gravity to be able to bounce off of guys. Star will be the wild card to me because we've not seen him. He was at Duke, and I think Duke's offensive line wasn't very good last year, and he didn't get I don't think a fair opportunity. But I think he could probably be our scat guy, who's a little bit more impactful in the passing game. And yeah, Peyton's the one that probably has the most hype given the status he was as a recruit. And everything. So I do think there's a chance that as the season goes on, we see him maybe end up taking over that lead role a bit, even though our lads has him listed technically third right now. But I think we have a stable of guys where I feel comfortable regardless of who's back there running the ball. And I think all three of them will have kind of a defined role in this offense too, where they're going to get their playing time and their opportunities to make an impact on the team. But really, the big question mark will honestly come down to the offensive line for all three of them. Is how does the line look, and can they, if they're not that good again, can they offset it like DSamp did? Which the likelihood of that's probably not high because of what he did was so special. So.
Yeah, and the offensive line, there's some reason to be optimistic, but then also there's a lot of question marks. In fact, earlier in the chat, Kevin said that it's going to take a while for the new offensive line to kind of gel. And so that's a great point. We'll hop into kind of the details on the offensive line here shortly. Austin, I'm going to catch up on the chat once again real quick. We love you guys jumping in the chat, so please continue jumping in the chat. Let us know what you think. Bender of Strings, welcome to the Vol Talk podcast. I think this is the first time I've seen you in the chat. Bender of Strings says, I'm thinking, talking about the Syracuse game, thinking 27-10 score. Offense won't be completely clicking game one, but I think we can punish Syracuse on the ground. So sounds like Bender of Strings is high on the running backs and the potential there. And Kevin says Bishop is the better blocker at the moment, and that could be huge too, right? To give Aguilar time to develop plays, go through those progressions, right? A lot of times Nico felt like he had to rush things, as we've been talking about. So it could be huge to have some good blocking from Bishop. And then Mike Gassaway says, love flying under the radar. I don't know if he means, talking about the Vols in general, because we are definitely flying under the radar heading into the season. Austin, you and I have talked about that, how I love it. I love the fact that we are, projected to not do as well as we did last year. When sneakily we might have a better ceiling than last year. So we'll continue to flesh that out, folks, especially as we get into our season predictions later on. Please stick around for that. It's a jam-packed show today, so we appreciate everyone jumping in the chat here. But Austin, you kind of, these folks are talking about, these points in the chat, the points Dakota made. Do you agree with all that? What else do you got to say about these running backs?
I think what's important is, Blake, we don't have to have one guy be as good as Dylan Sampson. We just need them to replace his production. And I think we have that. I think this is a deeper running back room than we had last year, even though Deshaun and Peyton were both on the team last year. I think it's deeper because they've developed one more year. You add Star Thomas, and I think overall the running back room will be fine. I think we'll still be able to run the ball. And the way Heupel runs his offense and he spreads defenses out, it allows for light boxes. So it's just easier generally to run the football. And we'll get into the O-line, but Dakota made a great point. O-line play is so crucial when it comes to running back production. It's less crucial in college than the NFL, but it's still incredibly important. So yeah, the offensive line is going to have to be better this year run blocking, especially since we don't have the high-end talent like we did last year in Dylan Sampson.
Absolutely, 1,000%. We got Jace Thomas in the chat here again. I think this might be the first time I've seen you, Jace. Welcome. He says, "Who is the Vols QB?" Man, you just missed our position group review of the quarterbacks. Joey Aguilar has been named the QB1, the starter heading into Week 1 for the Vols. Joey Aguilar being, I don't know if maybe you're a non-Vols fan. Hey, look, listen, we welcome all fans in the chat. Hey, light, kind of trash talk, whatever, that's totally fine. Once it gets into personal attacks, that's when we're not gonna do that in the chat. But we welcome fans of all schools, all teams. So Jace, if you're a non-Vols fan, Joey Aguilar was essentially de facto traded in the offseason when Nico Iamaleava, or Iamaleava as I call him now, left Tennessee, and then Aguilar was at UCLA, and we picked him up. And so now Aguilar has been named the starter for this season. We're excited to see what he's got. Rewind the video if you want to check out our review on Aguilar there. We just got done talking about the quarterbacks. But Dakota, any final thoughts on these running backs as we kind of wrap up the running backs? And it kind of seems like we've got a consensus on, hey, this is a, great stable of guys that, as you guys are saying, if we can at least replace his production. I think Austin made a great point. Can you replace Dylan Sampson's production? We don't need a single guy to do it. We just need, in the aggregate, to replace him, right?
Yeah, I think that's the final point. I think Austin nailed that, is that, I think expecting anybody to play like Samp did last year is just unfair to that one player. And also brings up a really good point that the offensive line play isn't as crucial in the college. And we saw that last year with a guy like Sampson. So it's just hoping that these guys can also offset that if it isn't great. But I think all three of them will make their impact, and hopefully the passing game is as elite, because like Austin mentioned, the small box thing is also dependent on how our passing game is going, because we saw Georgia's one of the best at doing this, where they still put 6 guys in the box and man up and just test us on the outside, and when they do that, they shut down our run game and force us to throw on them. So it'd be interesting to see how that goes with how our passing game is, and teams that line up with how Aguilar's playing, because it will have a direct impact on our run game as well.
And Blake, I'll make one more point on the back of that. Dude, there's been a lot of narrative over the last couple of years that a lot of like analysts who think they're smart want to come out and smarten up fans and be like, oh, Tennessee's not a passing offense, they're a running offense, because there's this narrative when Heupel got here that all we do is throw it around the yard. Well, that really bothers me, dude, because the last 2 years this offense has been the worst it's been under Heupel. So like, and I'm not saying to go away from the running game, but what makes this offense work is when we are hitting those deep shots downfield, right?
Yes.
With the running game, it is a balanced offense, but it's only firing on all cylinders when both work in unison, and they haven't the last couple of years. So we're going to need that pass game to start firing like it did under Hendon Hooker.
Great point, and we're hoping that Aguilar can do that. That's a fantastic point. Jace here in the chat. Jace says that he lives in Columbus. Welcome, Jace. We appreciate you checking out the podcast, man. Again, we welcome all fans. He says he's not here to start stuff. Hey, that again, even a little light trash talk, that's fine. We appreciate all fan bases, but we appreciate you jumping in here and continuing the conversation here, Jace. He says, I like the Vols. My sorry Browns got Sampson. Hopefully he has a nice career. Hey, yeah, Austin just pointed out Dylan Sampson might end up starting for your Browns, man. And look, you got an awesome player in Dylan Sampson. Awesome guy all around.
Yep.
So great player to have in your locker room there. And Jay says, I hope y'all have a good season. We appreciate that, man. We appreciate that. And again, we appreciate you jumping in the chat here. And Bender of Strings, again in the chat, says, guys, did you see anything in the Iowa State-Kansas State game yesterday that is causing you concern for our game? I saw a lot of sloppiness in that game yesterday. So I guess Bender is kind of asking about, you think we're going to come out sloppy? And I think we've kind of alluded to a little bit, hey, maybe, it may not fire at first on offense at least.
That's very possible, but I will say Dakota and I watched that game together yesterday, and I think a lot of the sloppiness was due to the weather. It was raining
and
pretty
the field
hard.
is garbage.
The field was terrible. It was played in Dublin, Blake, and that field was terrible. It was raining all day, extremely hard. So, but listen, it's college football. There's always going to be some sloppiness here and there. But honestly, that's another thing. Just going back to Aguilar real quick. I think his experience in leading the offense will help mitigate some of that sloppiness, because he has 2 years under his belt. He's an older player, so I think hopefully Aguilar and Heupel will be able to eliminate some of that.
I hope so as well, for sure. Again, folks, we really appreciate everyone jumping in the chat here. Continue the conversation. Please let us know what you think in the chat. If you're just now joining us, hop in there, join the conversation. Right now, we're going position group by position group, reviewing what we're looking at for the 2025 season for each position group. So we just concluded running backs. I think we're going to hop now into the receivers and tight ends. So we'll talk about each separately, but we're going to talk about receivers and tight ends. And y'all, look, these receivers, we have some guys who could really have great seasons. And we have the underlying talent. I mean, you look at Mike Matthews, a 5-star, right? We've been really excited about seeing what he can finally do, especially if Aguilar can get the ball to him, let him make a play. Brazel, if I'm not mistaken, Austin, I believe Brazel had an injury. Am I wrong about that? I think he was coming back from injury. But he is. Go ahead.
Yeah, he's been hurt through camp. He also dealt with that quick off the field thing that he got cleared up, by the way. His license getting suspended. I just gotta say, it's not like we're Georgia here and we're taking guys straight out of the pen,
right.
Blake. You know what I'm saying? So but yeah, he got that cleared up. And yeah, so Brazel should be good and healthy for the year.
So we got Brazel, and he, is a guy that has a lot of potential as well. Transfer there. You got Braylon Staley at the Y slot. Potentially Boo Carter. We might see Boo Carter on the offense at receiver. Austin, we've got Amari Jefferson, the transfer from Alabama.
Yep.
Hey, what a fantastic decision by that young man, getting out of Alabama and coming up to where the real men come to play football, which is the University of Tennessee. Amen to that. And then a couple other guys, Travis Smith, Rodarius Jackson. We've got a pretty deep core of receivers. So let's start with the receivers, Dakota. What are your thoughts on these receivers and what kind of impact they're going to be able to make this year?
Yeah, so we are returning just roughly 700 yards of our 2,800 receiving yards last year. So I think the question for these guys is what they bring to the table. Replacing Thornton, who's now looking like he's going to be a starter in the NFL, that we kind of consistently said felt a little underutilized. Brew McCoy, who was just a dog, and then Squirrel White, who kind of underperformed. But Brazel being the guy with the most experience in the offense because he got the most playing time. But Mike Matthews and Staley both, I think, are going to have expectations that are pretty high, especially Matthews. And he's had a little bit of off-field stuff that's come up with like the Nico situation that he may have been right on. So I think he's probably going to have the most pressure on him because he's the highest recruit on this list. But he also had, a few of these guys have dealt with minor injuries throughout camp as well. So that's going to play a role. I think the thing that worries me the most about this group is the lack of depth. There's a few freshmen that could be solid that we're going to rely on. And I mean, even like Amari, the transfer from Alabama, he did not really play last year. He's a decent recruit. He's a redshirt freshman. But he did not play much last year. So I think it's a lot of inexperience. I think that's the way you summarize this group is a bunch of inexperience, but guys with, I think, interesting skill sets and some pretty high ceilings where if we can get them involved and specifically Aguilar getting the ball to them in catchable ways, I think it's a group that could make an impact, but I think inexperience kind of summarizes this group of pass catchers.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I mean, we've got, some, like you said, some decent upside with Mike Matthews, but a lot of question marks down kind of in the depth piece. Catching up on chat here, and then I'll get your thoughts, Austin. We got Nate V. Welcome, Nate V. Says excited about the wide receiver core. Anyone at any given moment could pop off. Staley, Matthews, Travis Smith, if he gets reps, could go on. So Nate's pretty high. He thinks, hey, that it's a question mark, but some of these guys could pop off. Nate thinks it's a sneaky deep wide receiver room. We'll see, I guess. To your point, Dakota, it is a question mark, right? We don't know really what we can get out of any of these guys. We know a little bit about Brazel, a tiny bit about Mike Matthews, but that's about it. So really, I like Nate's optimism. It's just a question mark, right? And then Jace, real quick, he's saying the Navy SEALs video jumping into the Vols Stadium is my favorite video on YouTube. Jace, I agree, it's pretty sick. And man, anything Neyland gets me pumped up. But continue with the receiver talk here. Bender of Strings says, sneaking good, maybe sneaky deep. He says, no, we're not. So I think Bender of Strings maybe kind of agrees with us a little bit more in terms of the depth, maybe is not there. But to Nate's point, again, the question marks, right, Austin, could possibly end up on the right side of that. That's really the theme for me of this team, right? Do we end up on the right side of the question marks this season? Austin, what do you think about the receivers here?
Yeah, so I will say Dakota was pretty generous to Squirrel right there. I would say Squirrel was absolutely awful last year. One of the biggest question marks.
Most of the drops for him.
Yeah, Squirrel was horrible last year, Blake. Let's just call it like it is, an ace and ace. Mike Matthews should have played over Squirrel White. That's one thing that basically everyone in this fan base agrees. The true freshman 5-star Mike Matthews should have played over Squirrel White a season ago, and he did not. Blake, is everything okay? The stream good?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Got you. You're looking like the stream was messing up. But yeah, I mean, Mike Matthews should have played over him. In the limited opportunities, Mike Matthews was making plays. He has the size, he has the speed. So it was kind of befuddling why he wasn't playing over Squirrel at times last season when Squirrel was underperforming. And y'all both make a great point. All right, it's a very inexperienced group. However, Blake, I think this position group has the widest range of outcomes out of any position group on this football team. Okay,
Mm.
I think they could be absolutely elite because, to your point, Blake, there are a lot of highly touted prospects in this room, or because they haven't played and there is that lack of inexperience or that lack of experience, they could not be good. They haven't been good. This position group has not been good for 2 seasons, really. It hasn't been an elite room. I do think we were a little bit harsh on them last year. I went back and looked at our season review, Blake, and we gave them like a D for last year's performance. I think that was a little bit harsh from us. However, they weren't good last year. And we need them to be good again. And I mean, we touched on Chris Brazzell. Chris Brazzell, let's remember, he made the phenomenal catch against Alabama, the game-winning catch, really, to put us ahead. Braylon Staley, I'm very interested in him. He played in the Ohio State game. He made his debut there. And then Amari Jefferson, Blake, this guy's a two-sport athlete. Tony V was recruiting him out of high school, dude, to come play baseball for Tennessee. So I'm intrigued with his upside and his athleticism. And then the freshman, Travis Smith, was a pretty highly rated recruit, and Radarius Jackson, both 4 stars. Again, these guys are very good prospects, but they haven't showed it yet. And that includes Mike Matthews, the guy that we're really looking to break out in this room. And we're going to need some guys to break out. And I really don't care who it is. If it's Mike Matthews, if it's one of the freshmen, somebody needs to come in and make plays. And Amari Jefferson has been making some plays in camp, so maybe it's him. Maybe it's Braylon Staley. Who knows? But yeah, we're going to need some guys to step up in that room this year.
Definitely. And it looks like chat is kind of on board here. We'll catch up on the chat. Nate, adding a small correction kind of to what he meant, sneaky deep with potential. He says I should add. And I think we're all on the same page there, right? It's like, hey, look, there's potential for sure in this receiver room. It's just a question mark. Ryan jumping in the chat. We appreciate you, Ryan. Ryan says, get him the ball. Let the wide receiver group eat. We hope that Aguilar is going to be able to do that a little bit better this season than Nico did last season for sure. Kevin saying way too many unknowns. Every single guy has to step up big time. Absolutely. I think that's kind of what we're saying here is, the receivers, hey, we need to see who is going to step up and have that breakout season. Hopefully it's a couple guys. Maybe we'll see. Jace says Rocky Top is goated. Hey, Jace. And then Jace also says football is the best time of year.
He's right about both those things, by the way, Jace. You're hitting the nail on the head there.
You're absolutely hitting the nail on the head. And I thought I saw somewhere that he said that, he said earlier, excuse me, Jace said, looking forward to giving Nico a beatdown for y'all. That called him a traitor. I'm assuming living in Columbus. That's right. I'm assuming living in Columbus, Jace, that you're an Ohio State fan. So we would certainly appreciate a smackdown for Nico there if y'all can do that for us. And we appreciate the support. We agree. Rocky Top is goated, baby. Ryan says Squirrel couldn't pass block either. Always blown up when he was blocking. That's important too, right? Like, we talk about obviously the offensive nature, the pass catching ability, the run route, or the route running ability of receivers, but you got to remember pass blocking too, right? Brew McCoy, a dog, kind of like Jawan Jennings. You love to have those kind of guys, especially for their pass blocking ability. And then Rick says Brazzell wasn't so hot last year either. It makes me nervous that the leap he needs to make this year hasn't shown up in practice, injured or not. What do you think, Austin?
I'm gonna touch on that Rick comment because that's an interesting comment, and I agree with you. Brazzell overall was a disappointment last year, but let's remember when Dante Thornton got here his first year on campus from Oregon, he was also a massive disappointment year 1, but took a huge leap in year 2. So that's very notable. I'm curious if that's the route Brazzell will take as well, because in limited sample he made some plays. But again, overall was a disappointment, and that's kind of like Dante Thornton year 1. So I'm curious to see if he can break out in year 2 of Heupel's offense.
Yeah, what do you think, Dakota?
Yeah, no, I agree, and that's actually a really good point when it comes to Matthews and Staley as well. I mean, obviously not transfers, but they're going into year 2 as well as highly touted recruits. So I think that's a really interesting point with Brazzell and how Dante Thornton broke out. And Something Austin and I were chatting on yesterday, and it's not to like slander any previous wide receivers we've had, but we've kind of lacked elite wide receiver talent for a minute. It's in terms of like true projectability to the NFL, the size and speed. Jalen Hyatt, it was fantastic here without a doubt, but the scheme aided in that a lot. So it'd be nice if one of these guys could break out. And what really makes me excited, even though we're in the NIL era, transfers could happen. Looking at our depth chart right now and seeing true sophomore, redshirt freshman, freshman.
No,
Like if
very
those
young,
guys can
very
stay
young
together,
players.
yeah. In 2 to 3 years, we could have an insanely elite group of pass catchers. We just don't know for sure, but it's very exciting because they are all very touted recruits. So I think there's a lot to be excited about with this group. That's for sure. But to a lot of people's point in chat and what we've kind of touched on is that someone has to break out. Somebody does. The rest can be getting there, but somebody's going to have to set themselves apart as that number one guy.
And I would love to see it be Mike Matthews. I want to see him reach his potential as a 5-star for sure. Very excited to see what he can do. Chat is starting to pop off here, folks. We really appreciate you guys chatting. Please, if you're just now joining us, join the conversation in the chat. So we've got Jace continuing his comments here. He says, who is the Vols' arch rival? Number one is Alabama, baby. Period. I don't care what anybody else says. Number one is Alabama, and then probably number two being Florida. So those are kind of our two big rivals. And then
Kentucky
Jay
thinks
says,
they're our rival, but that's a one-way thing.
Right.
Like we don't care about Kentucky; they care about us.
Right.
Like they get up every single day. The first thing on their mind is the Tennessee Vols. I've literally never thought about Kentucky in my entire life, and that is not an over-exaggeration.
Absolutely correct. Same with Vanderbilt. And Pavia is doing his best to.
Wait, who? Vanderbilt. Never heard of them ever.
Yeah, exactly. Diogo Pavia is doing his best to pretend like Vanderbilt has a football program, like Dakota just said, but it ain't the case. And Jay says that he went to Ohio State. So again, welcome, Jace. We appreciate you joining, even though you're not a Vols fan. Lynn jumping in the chat. Welcome, Lynn.
Yes,
good to
sir.
see you, man. Lynn has been one of the day one supporters of All Talk, baby. So we appreciate Lynn here. And he says number one is beat Alabama. Lynn, in fact, you let us know last live show, Lynn, that you live in enemy territory down just below the border down in Alabama. So Lynn, we're praying for you, buddy. Good luck down there in Crimson Tide territory. We appreciate you doing the Lord's work down there, spreading the gospel of the Vols in the land of Alabama. And Jace agrees that he hates Alabama. Ben making an interesting comment here, and maybe it might be a nice segue to tight ends, which we're also going to cover in this segment. But Ben says, did y'all see any of those 4 tight end sets used by Iowa State yesterday? Dakota, Austin, y'all watched that game, so you saw these tight end sets, 4 tight ends?
Yeah, I don't expect Heupel to come out in 4 tight end sets this season. Maybe 12 personnel, but no 4 tight end sets. That game was ugly yesterday, man. A lot of running between the tackles because of the weather in that game. So
what I will say is there was a very interesting play, seeing the clip afterwards, where they lined up in like a 4 tight end set and then shifted into 5 wide. That was the QB draw that Rocco scored on. And that was just unique play design by having a bunch of big bodies out on the field. So that was pretty cool.
Cool stuff indeed. And that's a great segue to the tight ends, guys. Yep. So we've got a decent tight end room as well. Honestly, I like the names here. We've got Miles Kitselman. We've got Ethan, which, by the way, Kitselman is also a transfer from Alabama. So a lot of young men really wising up to where they need to be. And
like the great Alvin Kamara, by the way.
Like the great Alvin Kamara. Yeah. Absolutely. A good history of Alabama transfers. Let's just say the grass is in fact greener up here in Knoxville. So transfer to UT, folks. Get out of Alabama. Ethan Davis as well. And then you've got Desan Brame as a true freshman who was the number 5 tight end in the 2025 class. Austin, we're pretty high on Kitselman as always. Talk about these other guys. Ethan Davis has some upside. What are we looking at for the tight ends?
So Kitselman kind of broke out last year. Remember when he transferred here from Alabama, Blake? He was kind of an afterthought when he transferred here. He was not a very sought after recruit in the portal whatsoever. But this staff saw something in him, and he kind of immediately broke out. Let's not forget that NC State game. He went off last year against NC State. Had a couple of great plays. I think one was even negated in that game. And Kitselman has become the team leader, right? Like he has been I mean, they took him to SEC Media Days. He was kind of leading the charge. He's also the guy who called out Nico in his leadership, maybe took a little shot at Nico in from last year. But yeah, he's really good. He's really, really good. Now, I was disappointed that he didn't get as much opportunities as I thought he should have gotten last year. And I'm curious to see if that was scheme or was that our quarterback? Because that's really what it comes down to. Like, was our quarterback just never getting to the tight end progression in his reads? And so that's why the tight ends didn't have as much production as I thought they probably should have and could have last year. And then Ethan Davis, he's been really solid, more of a red zone threat, I would say. Ethan Davis, bigger body guy, can make some plays in the red zone to score touchdowns. And then Brame on here, so true freshman 4-star. He got some shout outs in camp. Apparently he had a really good camp, which is intriguing. And like I said, number 5, or like Blake said, number 5 tight end in a 2025 class. So we've got some depth there, I think, this year, which is good. But I think it's mostly going to be Kitselman and Ethan Davis leading the way.
You agree with that take, Dakota?
I do, yeah. And I do think it's been interesting. We've kind of had under Heupel consistently like 2 tight ends we feel really good about. Because like when we had Warren and Fant, we were all pretty happy with that. And both of them could be on the field in run blocking situations or as pass catchers. And also slightly felt underutilized then, where I feel like Jacob Warren and Fant both could have been used a little bit more. And I think Austin brings up a good point, though, of how much of that was scheme last year for Kitselman versus Nico just not getting through his progressions and seeing him open. Because I do think I think Kitselman could be a huge part of this offense this season. And he is basically our leading receiver coming back, outside of Brazel. And he's going to be the security blanket. A guy like that could be huge for Joey Aguilar. But I like these 2 guys. Davis has his skill set. He's a little bit quicker. But it'd be interesting to see what Brame does if he does get any playing time, because his body type is a bit more of like a modern tight end, like stretch the field, borderline a slot receiver that's just huge. So if he does get to play some, it'll be interesting where he could insert his name into this young group of pass catchers that can make an impact on the offense this season.
And once again, it comes back to Aguilar. Can Aguilar really spread the field and get the ball in the hands of these playmakers? And really open up our offense the way it should be under Heupel? I would absolutely love to see that. Catching up on the chat here, Jace talking about making the Vols his second team this year. Love to hear it, man. Hey, we'll take you. We'll welcome you with open arms. Welcome to Vol Talk Nation and Vol Nation in general. And he says that he'll try to hop on as we stream. Yeah, so folks, Jace asked, when we're going to be streaming. We're going to get into our schedule here in a little bit, but for this football season, we're looking at Sundays at 11:30 a.m. Eastern and Tuesdays at 8 p.m. Eastern for this football season. We'll talk a little bit more about that here later in the show, but that is our schedule for this coming football season for the Vol Talk podcast. And Swaggy AC, you got an Arkansas fan jumping in the chat. Hey, look, again, we welcome all fans.
That is the first ever Arkansas fan I've ever seen in ever. I mean, that is the one and only Arkansas fan in our chat right now. That is unbelievable. Wow, I didn't know they existed.
Welcome, Swaggy AC. He says, "Woo pig." In Arkansas's defense, Austin, I do have a good Army buddy, Trevor. Shout out to Trevor.
So there's 2. There's 2.
There's 2, man.
Are you sure that's not Trevor in the chat? Is that not Trevor's burner?
Maybe it could be his burner. Trevor is from Fayetteville, and he's a big Arkansas fan. So he says, "No hate, boys.
We're just playing Swaggy."
I'm my fixture bus. Hey, yeah, we appreciate you, Swag. We appreciate you jumping in. Again, we welcome all fan bases and some light talk heading into the season. You love to see it. So welcome, Arkansas fan. Woo pig, says Swaggy AC. But gentlemen, do you all have any other thoughts on the receivers and the tight ends heading into this year, Dakota or Austin?
My last thought is I just hope that they start to use the tight end as the easy button in the offense. Dude, that's what it really should be, and that's what Kitselman has. He has the ability to do. Just about be that easy button for Joey Aguilar in this offense. And yeah, I just hope we utilize them, especially because we just got done talking about all the question marks at wide receiver and the inexperience. The tight end room is where we have that experience, and we need to utilize that.
I think there's a solid chance we're sitting here at the end of the season and any of these guys we're saying is our wide receiver one going into next year. I think that there's a lot of excitement around all of them, but to Austin's point at the beginning is like the range of outcomes for these guys is wide. And with that does mean like the opportunity for pretty much every single one of them to set themselves apart. So I'd be curious to see what our conversations look like at the end of the season about these guys.
Yeah, absolutely. Gonna be interesting to see kind of, at the beginning of the season, what our thoughts are compared to the end of the season. There's, sometimes we hit the nail on the head. Sometimes, there's happy surprises throughout the season or unpleasant surprises. There's always some of that as well. So for sure, we'll see at the end of the season. Swaggy AC says, I'm in Fayetteville. Shout out to Fayetteville, Swaggy. Again, I've got a good buddy of mine, Trevor, who lives in Fayetteville. And then Jace, we're going to actually hop into our season predictions once we go through the position groups. If you're still around, we'll get into our season predictions. Jace saying 7 to 8 wins. You know what? Maybe that's reasonable. We'll see. We'll see once we get into our season predictions here. And Rick says, I've never seen an Arkansas fan anywhere, period. Well, hey, we got a friend of the program now in Swaggy in the chat. So, all right, gentlemen, let's now move to the final position group. We are an hour in, and we are just not getting through the offense.
Show, boys.
Folks, buckle up. I warned everybody at the top of the show, we like to yap. So buckle in. You probably got at least another 60 minutes of all talk coming at you.
At least.
We are probably just about halfway. Dude. At least. Maybe another 90 minutes. We'll see. But let's move over to this final position group in the offense, y'all. Let's talk about the offensive line. And this is a group that
sensitive
I think we all agree it's a sensitive subject. It kind of underperformed last year, right? There were some players in Lance Hurd that didn't play his best. Folks, it's a meme on this podcast that Lance Hurd gets strays occasionally, pretty almost every episode on this podcast. However, we are hopeful about Lance Hurd coming into this year because he was, he kind of was suffering from some injury last year, kind of out of shape last year, but he was a transfer from LSU, really highly touted prospect. You've got at left guard, you've got Sam Pendleton. Very weird. Oh, hold on.
Pendleton. Yes.
Okay. Pendleton. Okay, you included the
pronunciation, brother.
Pronunciation guide there. I appreciate you, Pendleton. I can't read. You got Pendleton. Hey, he was a transfer from Notre Dame. And then we've got Shamarad Umarov. That was he goes by Sham. So he was a 4-star prospect as well. We've got William Satterwhite at center. That's going to be a big one, y'all, to replace our center in Cooper Mays. And then we've got Wendell Moe Jr., also a transfer that some folks were pretty high on. If I'm not mistaken, Austin, he was one of the higher prospects in the transfer portal when he transferred. And then we've got a lot of folks who are high on David Sanders Jr. Jace, I don't know if you're still in the chat here. Jace might remember David Sanders Jr. He was a prospect that was looking at Ohio State and Tennessee and ended up coming to Tennessee. Huge get for us. And he's a true freshman, Austin, 5-star prospect. So, Austin, what's your take on this offensive line heading into the season?
So I think we have to start with the elephant in the room, Lance Hurd, okay? Lance Hurd came in last season as a 5-star prospect coming out of high school, transfer from LSU, like you said, Blake. And listen, he was literally the worst graded tackle in the SEC last year from PFF. That is not where you want your left tackle. It's not. But I've seen a lot of fans use excuses like, okay, he's coming off injury. He was out of shape, which, is kind of his fault. So like we'll see what Lance Hurd can do this year. I expect him to get better, right, Blake? Because I've said before, he can't get worse than last year. He just cannot. So he will be better this year. He does look like he's in better shape. That's the talk around campus. And I will say there's another notable thing that I have on Lance Hurd, which I found very interesting. Sham, our potential starting left guard, called Lance Hurd the head coach of the offensive line room in a press conference. I
Wow.
missed this. I just saw this right before the show while I was prepping. So that's big praise. I mean, that's a guy who, by the way, has been here for about 3 years. In Sham, he committed here and he stayed here. So to give Lance Hurd that praise says a lot about the work he's putting in this season. So I am very optimistic about Lance Hurd because, I mean, again, I'll reemphasize this because I don't know if I have on the show. As a 5-star prospect, like basically all that means is you have the tools to be an NFL player. That's what the 5-star means. It's projecting NFL talent, first round NFL talent in particular. So Lance Hurd has all the tools. It's his second year in the system. He has an entire offseason within Heupel's system. He should be in better shape, so he should play better.
Absolutely. I think you're absolutely right about that. We are, again, optimistic heading into this season about Lance Hurd in particular and this offensive line. Going to jump into the chat real quick, and then I'll get your thoughts, Dakota, on this offensive line. I'd love to hear your thoughts on where this group might land this year with these new faces. Ryan jumping in the chat here saying that, hey, get your favorite energy drink or coffee ready. The more content, the better. Love to hear it, Ryan. Appreciate you. Catching up here, Swaggy was asking if money or family members weren't involved, would y'all be more confident having Joey or Nico? Honestly, Austin, we talked about in the quarterback preview at the big top of the show. We're all kind of in agreement that, man, after we saw what we saw out of Nico last year, we're ride or die with Joey, baby. Regardless of everything that happened, you know what? We're high on Joey. Y'all can chime in on that here in a second if you got other thoughts. And then we got Jason Swaggy going back and forth a little bit here. Yeah, hey, the Vol Talk podcast is headed to the moon, folks. We got
Ohio State
fans,
and Arkansas fans arguing in the chat. Y'all
and
have it
Arkansas
out. Y'all
fans.
duke it out, man.
Are you in the chat? Look, welcome, come one, come all, but you love to see it. Appreciate both Jace and Swaggy being in the chat here, despite not being Vols fans. And then let's see here. Jace says, he was asking when predictions. Yeah, so Jace, we're going to do season predictions at the end of the show. Again, we probably got another hour or so, so buckle up, but we'll get to season predictions at the end. You can always come back and continue to watch the show if you have to leave the live show for any reason. Folks, you can always find our live shows on the live tab in YouTube. So go to our channel and go to the live tab. That's where all of the episodes are housed, is right there under the live tab. So if you have to come back after the fact, that's where you can find it. But we will be getting into season predictions at the end of the show. So buckle up, get ready for that. Stick around for that. And then we got Rick here says, I think if you want the best 5 on the field, then Satterwhite is the odd man out with Pendleton at center and Jesse Perry at right guard. That's interesting. Dakota, what do you think about that? And give us your overall thoughts on this offensive line.
Yeah, I'm actually a little high on Satterwhite. He didn't play a ton last year, but in a small sample size, he graded pretty well with PFF pass blocking wise. It does seem like the whole group is a bit better at pass blocking than run blocking. I hope Austin doesn't mind me reading this, but I feel like his note on our thing was summarizes Lance perfectly. He's bad, but can he be less bad? I think that summarizes Lance this year pretty well because he was abysmal. It's like, and Austin and I have talked about this a lot in terms of just there's this belief in football still that left tackle is more valuable than right tackle, and it's just not true. And the decision originally to put Lance Hurd at left tackle, I think, set up part of the reasons he wasn't as good. He was at right tackle at LSU and played well, and then he comes over here and he gets flipped to left. John Campbell was left last year, but the year prior got moved to right. So we switched the sides they're used to playing, which I think had to do with both of them not playing very well last year. And at the end of the day, it doesn't matter where your tackles are because the defense can line up their defenders wherever they want. So the idea of the blind side and stuff is just overrated. But yeah, I think it's hard to imagine him being as bad. And I think all of the offseason stuff is a great sign. Like Austin said, I think the way that the players are talking about him, the way he's talked about his quarterbacks, I think it gives me optimism that he's going to get back in line and start playing like the 5-star recruit that he was. But the interior is going to be interesting. And also, David Sanders as a true freshman expecting to hold down one of the edges in the SEC is a big ask. It really is. And so he's beefed up a ton. A lot of the concern when he first got to campus was he was like 260 pounds, which was very small, but he's beefed up. There'll be a lot of pressure on him, though, to hold that down. But again, the guy before him did not do a very good job. So the expectations are already pretty low. So that kind of helps him out. But I think the starting of Pendleton, Satterwhite, and Wendell Moe will be the starters. And I think that I feel pretty good about that group. Wendell was a very good pass blocker. I think that should be definitively better this year with this group, just given what they've done in the past and what Pendleton did at Notre Dame. And then I think it's just worth noting, which is just funny, but with Umarov, that I'm not 100% sure he was our designated injury dude on PATs last year. So pretty much every PAT we had, like on a short drive specifically, you saw him down on the field with a minor injury.
Yeah. Minor injury, questionable at best. But I mean, I like that, kind of thought process, especially on Lance Hurd, Dakota. We hope that I would love nothing more than to come through this season and be like, man, Lance Hurd is who we thought he was. And he has a bounce back season. That would be huge. But your thoughts on the interior are interesting. Looks like chat has some thoughts here as well. Donovan, we appreciate you jumping in the chat. I think this is the first time that I've seen you in the chat. JT in the chat. Let's go. He says, welcome, JT. But Donovan says they have said Satterwhite struggling with snaps. I hope it's Pendleton, which I think it will be. Travis Smith is going to be best wide receiver on this football team. Mark it down. Hey, that's a bold prediction from Donovan there, saying Travis Smith and the wide receivers is one to look out for. But Dakota, what do you think about Donovan's assessment there about Satterwhite struggling with snaps and all that stuff?
Yeah, I care more about how well he plays, to be completely honest. I know that it matters, right? Like getting the snap down is good, but what I will point to is one of the biggest examples that I don't think people talked about enough was Jason Kelsey in the NFL. That dude snapped the ball just on the ground pretty much every play. He had a very fast snap, but if you go back and watch with him and Jalen Hurts was basically in a full squat to catch the snap, and it's not ideal, but if he can get that down pat better, that's obviously ideal. But I care a bit more. Obviously, if he has horrible snaps that result in turnovers, you've got to sit him. But I care a little bit more about what he does after that than getting the snap down to like perfection.
What are your thoughts, Austin?
So yeah, I've got thoughts on a few of the guys. So I'll go back to David Sanders real quick. So David Sanders, like to Dakota's point, true freshman right tackle. Listen, I'm just gonna tell Vols fans right now, he is going to have some bad reps this year. He's just going to. True freshman tackles do not hit the ground running. They just never do. They need time to develop. So I'm happy the coaching staff is playing him right away, Blake, because he's a blue chip prospect. I mean, this guy was a top 10 prospect in his class, regardless of position. So they need to play him, but he's not going to be great right out the gate. He has to have time to develop, which is unfortunate because we need this line to get better, but that's just the reality. But I do think he could be better than John Campbell last year because he didn't set a very high bar. And so to the interior, Wendell Moe is interesting, man, because Wendell Moe, he was like a 3-star prospect out of the portal, but then they on 3 just listed him as like the all portal, all American guy or whatever, that crap. I would get rid of that completely. I don't ever want to see that again. The all portal team or whatever. That was the dumbest idea they've ever had. But Wendell Moe
let's not support this ridiculousness in college football right now.
It was ridiculous, dude. I clicked off that as soon as I possibly could. But he was phenomenal, dude. He was incredible last year. 88.4 pass blocking grade with PFF. Since 2023, he's only given up 1 sack since 2023, Blake. In 2 full seasons of football, that's over 1,000 pass blocking snaps. He's given up 1 sack. Elite level pass blocker, dude. So I'm most comfortable about Wendell Mo on this line. The rest of the interior is a question. I think we're going to see a rotation of guys. I think that's just the reality. Pendleton is a guy who will play a ton. He's a guy who's the most versatile out of the group, Blake. He can play both the guard positions and center, and he'll rotate in those positions. And then to Dakota's point, William Satterwhite, a 4-star coming out. The fascinating thing about this group, Blake, all 5 stars and 4 stars outside of Wendell Mo, which is the best player in the group. So we're talking about, as far as prospects, these are blue chip players. They're blue chip players. But someone made a great point in the chat earlier. I'm sorry, I forgot who it was. How are they going to mesh? That's my question. Because listen, we get the offensive line wasn't good last year, but one thing that on an offensive line play that is extremely important, Blake, is continuity. And these guys do not have it. None of these guys have played together. So it's going to be interesting how they mesh. I suspect they are going to be a whole lot better by the end of the season than they are in the beginning of the season. That's just my prediction. Pretty simple prediction, but I think that's going to be the case. Like by the time we play Florida, this might and if they stay healthy, I think this could be a pretty good group.
That's what I was just about to bring up. Is unfortunately we've got Georgia early in the season, but the trade-off is that we've got the Gators in the swamp later in the season. So hopefully that does give some time for all these position groups, but in particular the offensive line, maybe the receivers as well, to kind of start gelling and getting becoming a more well-oiled machine, so to speak, by the end of the season there. Folks, we really appreciate you guys. If you're just joining, welcome to the Vol Talk podcast. This is an unscripted podcast on all things volunteer sports. But today we are all Vol football, baby, because it is football time once again in Tennessee. So you are catching our season preview live show for the 2025 volunteer football team. We're going position group by position group and reviewing what we're thinking this position, each position group is going to look like this year. And then we're going to get into our watch list for our Vol Talk Awards. And then we are going to get into our season predictions. So Donovan dropping an early season prediction there. I think his is going to be a pretty common one, 9-3 with losses to Bama, Georgia, and Florida, the big three, right? I think that's going to be a pretty common thread with season predictions. But Donovan, we will get into our official season predictions towards the end of the show here. And then Sam Schrock, welcome Sam Schrock. I believe this is the first time I've seen you in the chat. So welcome to the Vol Talk podcast. Sam says Mo and Pendleton played 1,242 snaps in 2024 and didn't allow a single sack. You love to hear that, man. I mean, to your point, Austin, Dakota, you're talking about Wendell Mo could be a huge factor, especially for a Joey Aguilar, who you want to give him as much time as possible, right? So he doesn't force a bad throw. I mean, what do you think about that, Dakota?
No, yeah, I think this group is. I think the one thing we should know for sure is that they're going to be a pretty good pass blocking group.
Yes.
They should. Because Lance Hurd's main problem too was run game wise last year. He was like the worst graded, I think, run blocker in like college football. So of his abysmal play, the pass blocking was at least better.
Dude.
But I think that, bad. Yeah. What Austin brings up, I think what is a very good thing to not understate is the fact that these guys have literally never stepped on a football field together in a game. I think that is a very important fact here. And I think the Georgia game being earlier could be a game where we're saying, man, if only this was later this year, this game could have been more synced together. So that's probably the game to circle, where we're going to find out pretty early on how quickly these guys have gelled. But I feel confident. And yeah, one thing with Wendell Mo, like just, again, bragging on that guy, he's only let his quarterback get hit 4 times in a 3-year career. So that's pretty impressive. Yeah, that's pretty impressive.
You absolutely love to see that. Love to see an offensive lineman who is protecting his quarterback. That's one of the game maxims, boys. You got to protect our quarterbacks, our kickers, and our ball game. So
I can't believe he threw kickers into that. Robert Nealand is the GOAT, but throwing kickers in that was a choice.
Look, for those of you who are new to the Vol Talk podcast, a common thread is I'm having to teach Austin a lot about the history, of the Vols. I'm the historical guy. He doesn't quite understand yet how important special teams was back in the day to a guy like Robert Nealand. Please be careful with the
it
blasphemy,
wasn't
brother.
important
Okay.
back in the day, Blake. They just didn't realize it wasn't important yet. That's what they didn't realize that it's not as important
Oh,
yet. That was the issue.
They
But
made
I
it
mean,
too important.
yeah, exactly. They made
dear
it too
God.
important.
Oh man, y'all listen. I'm gonna get these boys right eventually. Okay, we're gonna not blaspheme the great Robert Nealand. No, but it is a game maxim. Protect the quarterback, right? And you love to see Wendell Moe protecting his quarterback here. Catching up on the chat here, Jace is giving his thoughts again on those predictions. And then Lynn saying Georgia early is not good for Georgia. Hey, I love that outlook, Lynn. Love to hear that. And then Sam saying Georgia has a rebuilt O line too. It evens out. That's an interesting point, right? We're focused on us, but of course we got to think about the other teams as well. And it's going to be early for Georgia as well, and so maybe their O line is also still trying to gel. But gentlemen, do y'all have any final thoughts on the offensive line heading into the 2025 season?
No, overall, I think they're going to be better pass blocking to Dakota's point. And I think we're going to get improved play from the tackles. I would say just be patient with the true freshman fans. Don't start tweeting at him when he has a bad game against Georgia. He's going to take some time to develop and get better. But he will be great one day. David Sanders, that is. But I think the line play will be better than last year, and we need it to be. Man, the line was terrible last year.
Reiterate that, and specifically the Sanders thing with the fans is don't attack the guy when he has a bad game. Let's not do that to the poor guy, because he could end up being our bookend elite tackle for the next few years. So
you got to let him develop. And honestly, we got an Ohio State fan in the chat right now, Jace. I'm sure he would love to have David Sanders Jr. transfer to Ohio State, right? If so let's not run David Sanders off. Let's let him develop for sure. We're hoping for great play from him, even as a true freshman. Obviously, if he's starting, then the coaches see the upside there, right? But y'all make a great point in terms of, hey, look, he's going to have a couple bad games here and there, a couple bad plays, so let's let him develop. We want him to stick around and turn into that elite lineman for sure. So, folks, that concludes the offense. Austin and Dakota, we have covered all of the offensive groups. And so now we're going to transition over to the defense. One last thought here Jace has on David Sanders Jr. is a monster. I think he wanted a guaranteed starting position. Good for y'all. Yeah, and, Jace, look at that. Here we are. He's a true freshman. He's starting. So, again, we're hoping he develops quickly, even as a true freshman, but we're going to give him some grace for sure. But now let's transition to the defense, folks. Okay, so we're going to transition first to the defensive line. And, Austin, Dakota, this is a position group that last year was the clear best position group probably on the team, right, is the defensive line. We had James Pierce Jr., we had, Omari Thomas, and we had all these guys who were fantastic. We had a couple of defensive linemen drafted this past year in the NFL draft. And now there's some question marks, right? We lose a lot of those guys. We had several seniors or guys who get drafted. But Austin, you've kind of talked about the fact that this defensive line, it could end up being really great this year because of the rotation of guys that we've got. Talk us through that rotation.
This is the most experienced position group on our team by far. Tons of seniors that will be playing in this group. It's a lot like running back, Blake. How do you replace Dylan Sampson? How do you replace James Pierce and his production? And again, it's going to be in the aggregate with several different players. I'm also looking at players to break out from this position group, and we'll get into some of those guys like Jordan Ross, former 5-star blue chip player, top 10 player in his class. We need a guy like that who's a true sophomore to break out and potentially be the next James Pierce Jr. But I also think this is, outside of the secondary, the best position group on the team. Ton of depth, dude. I mean, the deepest position group on the team, I would say, as well. Headlined by Joshua Josephs, fantastic last season, elite run defender. Tyree West, a guy who was making plays left and right last year. Blake, I remember several of our reviews were shouting out Tyree West and the plays he made. So yeah, that's just a few guys that I'm looking at. David Hobbs is unfortunately still injured on the as the defensive tackle. He was going to be our number one defensive tackle this year. Again, a guy who was a highly rated recruit, so hopefully he can get back and develop in his true junior season. But overall, with this defensive line, man, I'm looking at the depth, the experience, and how do we replace James Pierce?
Dakota, give us your thoughts on this defensive line and what you're looking at for this season.
Yeah, we got to replace James Pierce, and we have to replace Norman Lott. He broke out last year, so our two, on best defenders on the D line are both gone now. But Austin, he nailed it in terms of the depth and the way that Banks has built the defense in general, where we are rotating guys 24/7. So a lot of these guys have seen the field in substantial amounts already. So we don't have to worry about inexperience from any of them. They've been on the field. They've played together. I think where I'm looking to see, the step up is from the pass rush ability. Joshua Josephs is an elite run defender, absolutely elite. If he can take a step forward from a pass rushing perspective, and same thing from Ross, that would be huge. But Norman Lott and James Pierce were both really good pass rushers, and I think that helped the defense a ton. So that's where we're going to need to replace that in the aggregate, like we've talked about a lot, where all these guys just doing their part. We don't need anybody to be James Pierce Jr. again. It'd be lovely if somebody turned into that, but we don't need them to. We just need the group together. What I will say is that one of the transfers that I think hurt to me the most was Jason Jenkins. I thought he looked really good last year, and I think it's worth noting him missing from this group because he was a good pass rusher last year when he got his limited playing time. It would have been great to see him as a part of this group alongside Josephs as most likely the two starters. So that one's a bit of a blow not having him, but we still have the depth. We have the true sophomore in Jordan Ross, who's a 5-star prospect. And then the defensive line, hopefully Hobbs can get healthy. But I feel confident in Eason and Moy being out there. We got the transfer Shell coming in. So I still feel good about this group. I feel good about their ability to continue stopping the run specifically. I think they're going to be good at that still. But we're going to need to see some guys step up a bit from a pass rushing perspective.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm glad you bring up the point about, some guys that we're going to be missing, not just the folks we lost to the draft, but also those transfers, right? But you're hitting the nail on the head, Dakota. We've got some great depth. Austin has talked a lot about this rotation on this defensive line. So I want to continue getting y'all's thoughts on this defensive line, but quickly, I've got to jump in the chat here, catch up on chat. We got a lot of chat going on. Love to see it, folks. Please remember, continue the conversation. And I love Jace shouting out, hey, hit that like and subscribe button for sure. And you know what? Go ahead and share the video as well with your friends. If you got some friends or family members who like football, again, please share the video, get them here in the chat. We'd love to have this conversation continue. Real quick, though, I've got to answer Rick's question. He says, what's an Oski? I think he's calling back to an Oski. He's calling back to the Robert Nealand chat. Okay, the General Nealand chat.
Okay,
and you know what? I love it. I love it because I say Oski. Austin, you say Oski.
Well, that's what Oski. They taught us in football, brother. When you get an interception, you gotta yell Oski.
Hey, see, and there it is. So that's exact. And tell you what, it originated with UT and General Nealand. That's correct. So
I didn't know this.
He used Oski, and there was a song, Oski Wow Wow. And it was used to signal that an interception had been made. Essentially, as I understand, the legend has it kind of stands for our side caught it, right? So OSCI, but then of course pronounced with a K. And so yeah, man, Robert Nealand, dude, used it to signal an interception. Let the defense know, hey, our boys got it. You got to turn around. You got to start blocking now, baby. So Rick, I'd love to see that in the chat there. We got to teach these folks up on the greatest of all time, Robert Nealand. Never forget, folks, Bear Bryant even admitted he learned all he knew from Robert Nealand. Facts.
That's just the
Kevin
facts.
Smith. That's just a fact. Kevin Smith says you can't replace anyone. You just have to step up. Yeah. So you're talking about the offensive line. We definitely need these guys to step up. Again, Jace, appreciate you shouting out the likes and subs there. And then Sam in the chat here, he's talking about the defensive line. He says James Pierce, Omar Norman Light, and Omari Thomas in total accounted for 10% of tackles and 19% of tackles for loss. Will be just fine on the D line. I mean, I think that's a great point, right? I mean, we had such a good rotation last year. I think that can continue this year. Bender of Strings says replacing James Pierce shouldn't be a Herculean task, because he was kind of a no-show last season. I don't know if he was a no-show necessarily. I just think it speaks to exactly what we're talking about here, Dakota, right? Which is just this rotation of guys on the defensive line and the fact that we can rotate through such a deep line, right?
Yeah, and what I will say, it's a good point on the the tackles, but I know Austin agrees with. I care a lot about pressures. In football today, your ability to create pressure, and James Pierce and Omar Norman Lott made up 34% of our pressures last year. So over a third of our pressures are now gone without those two guys, and that's not even including what Omari had as well. So I get that point as well, for sure. Because in terms of the production, they may not have been, making up a ton of the production, which also still matters. Because to be honest, we didn't have a ton of sacks as a team from our D line. They were getting after the quarterback a lot. But yeah, replacing 34% of the pressure that we get on the quarterback that can lead to bad throws, that can lead to interceptions and fumbles is also important. So that's where we'll be missing them the most, is making sure we can make that up in the aggregate.
Yeah, absolutely. Austin, what are you thinking about, just being able to continue this rotation of guys, and Sam's point there about losing 10% of the tackles and 19% of the tackles for loss between those three guys? He's saying we had a ton of production and the rest of the line.
Yeah, I think it just speaks to the bigger point that how Gardner likes to run this defensive line is 12 deep, and you're going to see 12 guys in this rotation. That's why I call it the deepest D-line room. I find it interesting, Blake, when I'm looking through the roster, a lot of these guys were from like the 2022 and 2021 class. So basically, Heupel, what they did when they immediately got here was they emphasized recruiting defensive line. That's what they did. I believe I have a break-in right now from my dog. So the Brucey's trying to get on Vol Talk, man. He wants a part of the fun. He's excited for the season. I don't know what was going on back there, but yeah, I mean,
he's got that dog in him.
He got the dog in him, brother. But yeah, so I think Rick asked about another guy on the defensive line, Josh Shell, transfer from Grand Valley State. We just have to see. Okay, I'll be honest. I wasn't grinding Grand Valley State tape. I just wasn't. But do I expect him to be a part of the rotation? Yes. He's going to be one of the probably 12 guys that we see a large role from on this defensive line, Blake. Another guy I have to shout out, Bryson Easton made a ton of plays last year. He's coming back. Again, part of that experience. Caleb Herring, expecting him to take a jump forward. True Jr., number one player in Tennessee in his class, Blake. Need him to take a step forward, to Dakota's point, especially on the edge, so we can replace some of that pass rush that we're going to be missing. And then Isaiah Campbell, a guy I'm looking at, true freshman 4-star, top 35 player in the class. He was a fringe 5-star, 6th defensive lineman in the 2025 class, Blake. He's also getting shout-outs in camp. When you're getting shout-outs in camp as a true freshman, they're seeing something from you, man. The athleticism standing out, the speed, the size is standing out. So I wouldn't be surprised at all if he makes an impact as a true freshman on that D-line. There's a ton of guys to shout out. So overall, I do agree with Bender. I think the defensive line is going to be fine, right? Are we missing that elite player? Well, maybe we're missing it, but we don't really know, right? Because Jordan Ross could come in and be that elite player that James Pierce was. And I know it didn't always show up in the sack production. And James Pierce, that is part of the critique, though, Dakota, right? Because he was really good at getting pressures, but he didn't always finish. That was part of his issue as a prospect. He didn't always finish, so we kind of need that as well. So I expect a couple of these young guys to break out, man. But overall, Jackson Moy, another guy, second year in the system, transferred from Stanford. He's also a guy that they've been pushing as a team leader as well. He's been doing a lot of the speaking engagements and things like that. So he should have a big role. Overall, man, I think the defensive line will be good. It's going to be a strength of our team, and it's an emphasis, right? They emphasize depth, bodies. They just want big, fast guys on the defensive line to rotate through. So yeah, and just like last year, Blake, like we said last year, oh, this is one of the strongest position groups, but we didn't expect all the guys we started shouting out like Tyree West and Dominic Bailey, Omar Norman Lott even broke out last year. So yeah, I mean, Gardner is so good as the defensive line coach, man, and I expect more of that in 2025.
Absolutely. You love to see the fact that Gardner has, just really solidified the Vols as a top destination for defensive line. It's absolutely massive because it's such a critical position, especially position group, especially in the SEC. Right. We're going to catch up on chat here. Rick, we answered your question about Shell. Appreciate Austin kind of jumping in on that. And then we've got Donovan saying we need Jordan Ross to take a bigger role, especially with the Hobbs injury. That's absolutely true. And then Jay saying he shared it with his Vol friends on TikTok. We appreciate that, Jace. Sam is saying that he was a locker room nuisance is what he's referring to. I'm not sure what are we.
Pierce.
I'm not
we're
sure
talking. We're talking Pierce there.
James Pierce. That's
yeah,
right.
And that's fair. I mean, Pierce has a question mark of work ethic, right? And that was coming straight out of college. A guy that was extremely talented, but it didn't always seem like he was giving 100% effort. I think that's a fair criticism of Pierce, and that might be one of the reasons he can't finish on some of those pressures. Again, that's where we need somebody to break out, right? We need one of these edge rushers who's loaded with 4 and 5 stars, dude. It's a lot like the offensive line. We have the blue chip talent there, man. A lot of our blue chip talent on this team is in the trenches, which you love to see. But we need a breakout player. We need a breakout player on this defensive line, and I think we'll get one.
Dakota, you think we're going to get a breakout player? I mean, I'm looking at freaking, Josephs. I mean, he was massive last year. You think he's going to continue his production? One of these other guys, you think they'll break out here, Dakota?
Yeah, I don't want to tease too much to our awards later, but yeah, I got a couple guys on some of those later on here, and I agree with Austin. Like, it's been proven from Gardner and Banks on this defensive line of just churning dudes out who break out after a few years in the system, and then they get their time to shine and they make the most of it. And we just saw that with Norman Lott and I'm excited about what this group can do. And yeah, we'll see from a pass rushing perspective. That's just the main question, I think. And it's not even a big one, but I just think, well, that's where we'll need them to step up the most because I have full faith in them being an elite run defense again. But if they can just take a few steps forward as pass rushers, and then if somebody did break out like a Jordan Ross as an elite edge rusher, then we're looking elite top 5 in the country again in terms of what we can do on the defensive line.
Hype me up, baby. Hype me up. Let's continue the amazing defensive play for sure. Shout out to Jace in the chat. He asked, what is the number 1 game day food? Let's take a quick break here from the chat. And gents, what's your number 1 game day food? I mean, obvious. Lynn, I like Lynn's answer. Number 1 game day food, beer. Love to hear that, Lynn. You're not wrong there. Dakota, what's your number 1 game day?
Sounds
food?
Like our pops, Blake. That was his number 1 game day.
I tell you what,
as well.
That was his number 1 food every day. But man, Dakota, what you got?
I'm a sucker for like a good the Velveeta meat dip, something like that. I love dips. Give me a dip because I'm gonna eat it. Austin, next Saturday when we're hanging, I'm eating it all day. Like, I'm not stopping. I will not stop eating it for the entire day till I'm sick. So it's got to be that. It's such an easy thing. Every time you get up, you just grab any of those finger foods. You just keep eating them throughout the whole day. I like the beer shout too by Lynn.
Yes, I love that.
What about you, Austin? What are you on?
Dude, I gotta agree with Dakota. Rotel dip, dude. I can eat some Rotel dip all day long. So I gotta agree with that.
Man, good stuff. Jace, we appreciate you engaging here in the chat. And then we've got Lynn saying that he shared to my Alabama Facebook. No one liked it. Yeah, LOL. Again, Lynn, man, you're down there in enemy territory. We appreciate you doing the Lord's work, trying to bring those wayward heathens down in Alabama to the light. That is the Vols. Bender of String says, guys, is the position edge rusher different from a true defensive end? Is it more of an outside linebacker defensive end hybrid? Austin, Dakota, one of you guys want to take that?
So yeah, I mean that's a great question.
Mhm.
Edge rusher is kind of the new terminology for a 3-4 outside linebacker or a 4-3 defensive end. It's basically the same thing. It's just the guy that's getting after the quarterback. That's kind of their job, right? Is to rush the passer on the edge. And so yeah, it's I wouldn't even say it's a hybrid. It's just a new one-word terminology for essentially what was the same position but just different schemes.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it. And I don't know if you're in NFL is probably the easiest way to equate it, where you take a guy like a TJ Watt, right? Everybody considers him an outside linebacker, but Myles Garrett's a D end. Max Crosby's a D end, Nick Bosa's a D end, but they're all edge rushers, right? Like it's the scheme driven determines what their like designation is as a position. But yeah, edge. Austin did a good job summarizing. It's a term to recognize anybody who's coming off of the edge to pass rush, regardless of what the scheme is.
Appreciate you guys laying that out there. For Bender of Strings, continuing on in the chat here, Donovan saying, good point, Austin. Well, first of all, Donovan joining in the conversation about the number one game day food Jace put forward. He says pizza. Obviously, pizza is a go-to. Listen, folks, if anyone is in the Clinton area, shout out Pizza Express. Great game day pizza from Pizza Express back home at Clinton, Tennessee. But Donovan also says, good point, Austin, Tennessee, finally in the 50% blue chip ratio of the roster. Absolutely. That's absolutely massive. No, if I'm not, someone correct me if I'm wrong, but no national champion, at least since 2000, if not since the beginning of the BCS has had under a 50% blue chip ratio, right? Am I right on that, Austin?
Yeah, I think that was the second part of Donovan's comment. Even is that he's saying since 2013, there's been no team lower than 50%. And I think you're right, Blake. It even goes back further than that. It's crucial, man. Like you need the Jimmies and the Joes, as they say. And we're starting to get there, right? We're starting to add that talent. And it was intriguing going through the starters and seeing, oh, this guy was a 4-star, this guy was a 5-star. It's all throughout the roster. I think we just need some guys to step up and become stars, especially on this D line.
Absolutely. And then Bender of Strings following up on his question about the edge rusher there. I asked because the guys we've had there seem a lot smaller than our traditional defensive ends, like Derek Barnett, Reggie White. Love the shout out, man, to Reggie White.
Those are some greats right there, Blake.
Robert Ayers too. Hey, I love the Robert Ayers shout out, man.
First round pick, Robert Ayers. So that's a great question. I think that's just the game changing, man. There's a lot more slimmer edge rushers that the emphasis is speed over power. And that's just kind of, I think that's what Banks has looked at. It's a great point too, because Jordan Ross, specifically the really the one major blue chip player on this defensive line, he does have a very similar body type to James Pierce. A slimmer guy, he's going to win with speed over power. But again, I think that's just the way the game's going recently.
Yeah, and I think to add to that, like QB athleticism, right? Like back in the era of quarterbacks like Peyton, who were just standing bricks, big rock, like everybody who was just pocket passers, you didn't need speed to be able to contain them. But now every quarterback in football has athleticism. So I think it's a big part of, you've got to be able to contain those guys. And to Austin's point earlier, James Pierce didn't do a fantastic job of that. So that's where these guys could make a step forward. But yeah, athleticism at the QB position is changing how defenses have to approach it.
It's just the evolution of the game, baby. Evolution of the game. Bender of Strings jumping in the conversation about number one game day food. He says wings from Publix. Publix does have some good food. Love to see it. And then Rick saying adult gummies for game day. Rick, we appreciate you, man. We appreciate you being a part of Ball Talk.
Don't expect anything less than from Rick, by the way. Shout out Rick. Absolutely. Man. One of my favorite chatters. Everyone's my favorite chatter, but Rick is one of my favorites of the favorites.
Rick always bringing the comedy, man. We appreciate you. And let's see here. Jay saying, as long as they aren't couch lock sleepers. Yeah, for sure. And look at this, folks. We got Justin
Our
Wright.
first
Go
Florida fan.
Gators. Y'all getting chomped in the swamp. We got our first Florida fan in the
Listen.
chat. Hey, Justin, we appreciate the engagement, man. Please share it with your friends. We'd love to get the algorithm going here, baby. But go freaking
Listen.
Vols. That's all I know.
We'll get into season predictions later, and we'll have some things to say about the swamp. But yeah.
We'll have some things to say about the swamp, indeed. Gentlemen, let's continue moving down the defense here. I know these folks are chomping at the bit, no pun intended, to get to our season predictions. So, Jay says, all Justin's calm down. I love it. Let's move right along here, Austin, to the next group, which is going to be the linebackers. Now, Austin, Dakota linebackers are traditionally one of my favorite position groups. Okay. You know, I'm a big Al Wilson guy. Al Wilson, freaking the neck pad back in the 90s. Man, linebackers got to be mean. They are arguably the meanest position on the football field. And man, I love a good linebacker core. And some more modern guys as well that ended up going to the NFL. We've had a pretty good history of linebackers here at the University of Tennessee. But Dakota, this year, linebackers could potentially be somewhat slim or could be a good group. Austin, this might end up being we're going to talk about the secondary here in a minute, and we had a fun moment on our last year's show about the secondary. I'm feeling like the linebackers could be kind of that hot and ready kind of situation with this position group. I just need them to be hot and ready, baby. I just need them to be good or decent, good enough. Dakota, what is your thoughts on the linebackers? Arian Carter, Jeremiah Telander, projected starters. What do you think about this position group?
Yeah, I think it's an interesting one because I'm pretty sure it's the only one that doesn't have a transfer in it. These are all homegrown guys that are on this depth chart for linebacker. And I like us returning Telander and Carter. Those are two guys that played together last year. I think we need them to step up a bit. I think we'll get to that a bit later, but I think Arian Carter was a 4-star, and I'd like to see him kind of get to that point of playing like an elite level linebacker. And Telander was flying around last year, man. Like he was playing with heart. As a 3-star, you kind of have to do that, right? Like Will Brooks was kind of that guy for us last year consistently. Was just you got to play with more heart when you're just not quite as athletic as the rest of the guys on the field, and he flew around. I think my main concern will just be a bit in coverage. I think run defense wise is where they're a little bit stronger. But yeah, it's an interesting group because you've got these two juniors and then you've just got 2 redshirt freshmen followed by 2 freshmen. So it's a young group of guys because even they're just true juniors. So all chance they're both here again next year. And it's also fascinating that we didn't have a transfer into this group just to add a little bit more depth that's experienced. So I think that'll probably be the biggest concern is that if we have an injury to guys, we're going to rely on somebody who's pretty much not played a ton.
Austin, what are your thoughts on the linebackers?
Yeah, Dakota made a lot of good points there. I'll say it is lacking depth from what I see right now, and that's why they're emphasized recruiting at Blake. I mean, that's maybe the number one emphasis in this next recruiting class if you go look at it. But it is an experienced group, like 2 guys that did start last year coming back. And Arian Carter, he's the leader of this defense. He just is. Like he's taken that role over. He started to last year, but you can tell this year he's the guy, which is really what you're looking for in your Mike linebacker, right? That's what you want. You want him to be the vocal leader. He gets the position in or the defense in position. And then Telander, to Dakota's point, he did play with a ton of heart last year. And to Blake's point, he's got that linebacker in him. You can just tell he's got that dog in him to play linebacker. That's just the way he plays the game. Yeah, you make an interesting point too, Blake, that it's a position group that, since it is lacking depth, I am somewhat worried about it. But I think the 2 starters can both break out this year. I think they're 2 guys that are kind of primed for a breakout. And Arian Carter really started that last year. He played pretty well last year. So yeah, I'm pretty confident in those 2 guys. I am just interested to see who's behind them, and how much are we going to have to rely on the guys behind him?
Yeah, big question mark right at the depth piece for the linebacker group, for sure. So I'm gonna check in on chat here real quick. Ben says that Checkers has excellent wings. Again, continuing with the conversation about number one game day food. And then Jay says Big Buford all day. And then Sam, I love to hear this. Sam, I'm glad you bring this up. Tennessee has a winning record for November games in the swamp.
Thanks to
Good
who,
luck.
Blake? Thanks to who?
Hey, Casey
Clausen probably had something to do with that, right? And we'll get into him later in the awards.
Boys, Casey Clausen. I'm always going to shout him out. Casey Clausen was, before Hendon Hooker, the last Tennessee quarterback to beat both Alabama and Florida in a season. So put some respect on Casey Clausen's name. We'll talk about him in the award watch list section. And then Rick says, "Off shucks, fellas. Thanks, fellas. I dig the energy of your show. We really appreciate it, Rick. We couldn't do it without you guys in the chat here. We couldn't do it without you guys who follow the show. We really appreciate y'all's support. It's been awesome." But gentlemen, if you don't have any further thoughts on the linebackers, let's go ahead and move into our final position group for the defense and final position group for the team, which Austin, I think is fitting. Okay. Quick shout out. I'm going to take a second here to educate our newer Vol Talk listeners. Today is actually the 1 year anniversary of Vol Talk. We didn't plan that. It just so happened that August 24th of last year was the day we dropped our first episode for the Vol Talk podcast. Now, don't go and watch it. The production quality was
do not go
quite
and watch
low. Quite low indeed. But I bring that up because one of our first show was it our season preview last year? That was the first show.
That was our first show.
There we go. So season preview last year was our very first show for the Vol Talk podcast. And again, we have I haven't refreshed the subscriber count, Austin, but we have grown a ton over the past couple months. I mean, we started with like 10 subscribers, and it was like our friends and family, right?
Yeah.
And so we have really appreciated the support over 1 year of Vol Talk. But 1 year ago today, we had our season preview for 2024, and we talked about the secondary, Austin. And we had the infamous moment on Vol Talk podcast history where, you said, hey, you know what? I just need the secondary to be like a hot and ready pizza from Little Caesars. Is it good? No, not really, but it's hot and it's ready. I just need them to be serviceable. And you know what? 1 year later, we owe an apology to the secondary. We owe an apology,
a big apology
to Jermod McCoy and to
Ricky
the rest
Gibson.
of the secondary Ricky Gibson, because the secondary absolutely broke out like crazy last year. And Austin was probably the best, and ended up being the best position group last year, the secondary or close. And man, it's looking like this year that could continue. Austin, talk us through. We've got Jermod McCoy, Ricky Gibson coming back. Colton Hood has been looking great, a transfer from Colorado. Jalen McMurray, and those are all cornerbacks. And then, of course, we've got Boo Carter, and then Jordan Thomas, Andre Turrentine at safety, Caleb Beasley. Love to see what Caleb Beasley is going to do this year. He's been looking great. And then Farrakh as well. So Austin, talk us through these cornerbacks and these safeties and all these secondary players.
Yeah, man, it's crazy how much a year can change things, because I'm going into last season, saying that the secondary is going to be the worst position group out on the team. Ended up probably being the best, and this year I'm saying, listen, this is the position group I'm probably the most confident in. Okay. I think it's a really, really good group of players. The caveat to that is secondary play can be very volatile, Blake. Okay. It can be volatile season to season. So that worries me a little bit. However, Jermod McCoy was one of the best corners in the entire country last season. He was an absolute lockdown, shutdown corner. He is still recovering from the ACL, Blake, but it looks like he's trending to play very soon. I don't know if he'll play week 1, but he's been practicing with the individual drills. And I think I think for sure he'll be back by Georgia. So that's very, very notable. And he was phenomenal, dude. Absolute, like you said, Blake, absolute breakout year. Let's not forget the Alabama game where all we heard on TV, oh, look at the 17-year-old Ryan Williams, man, he's breaking out. Look what he did against Georgia. And what did Jamad McCoy do to Ryan Williams? Absolutely shut him down for 4 quarters. Absolutely incredible season. Ricky Gibson probably doesn't get enough of credit for what he did last year. I think all of us can agree he left a bad taste in our mouth from the Ohio State game, but no one can guard Jeremiah Smith. So we're just going to give him a pass on that. There's literally no one in the entire country that can guard that dude. So we're going to give Ricky a pass on that one. He was really solid last year. He's coming back. He'll be the other cornerback on the field. And then to your point, Blake, Colton Hood's been phenomenal, dude, in camp. He's made plays in camp. Dakota and I, in the last show Dakota was on, we were breaking down that play with the blurred out quarterback and trying to figure out, who's the quarterback that made this throw? Well, it was Colton Hood, the corner, that was making a phenomenal play on the ball. So just based on that one sample, it looks like the guy has great ball skills, which is really important for a corner. And then Jalen McMurray's good depth, experienced player. So yeah, and then I'll let Dakota go over the corners there. But yeah, that cornerback room, I'm very confident in.
Yeah, I mean,
go ahead.
Sorry, go ahead, Blake. No, go ahead, Blake.
No, I was just gonna say, appreciate the correction from Kevin in the chat here. Says Farouk for Edris Farouk as one of our safeties. But yeah, Dakota, let's continue before we get into the safeties. And then, of course, Boo Carter coming back. Let's talk about these corners. I mean, great group coming in this year.
Yeah, I mean, Jermon McCoy, even right now, coming off the injury, is projected to be pretty much a top 15 pick in the NFL next season. So the play that he did last year was elite. And, you know, everybody wanted to equate Ryan Williams to Jeremiah Smith, and I think Jermon McCoy was a big part of what shut that down, because he absolutely locked him down in Neyland in the Alabama game. I will say it's tough corners coming back from ACL injuries. Obviously, modern medicine has taken massive steps forward, but it's always a little bit difficult for defensive players to come back where your movement is based on what the guy in front of you is doing. It's a lot more difficult, but hopefully he comes back healthy. I think the key that I want to see is making sure, you know, luckily we have the first few games we can let him rest. I don't want him out there until Georgia. We probably need to get in there before the Georgia game in limited capacity against, like, you know, UAB or whatever, but I don't want to see him playing. Exactly. Don't want to see that dude playing too much. Let him get his legs before the Georgia game, because you don't want his first action also to be playing against Georgia. But we don't want him on the field until probably the week before that. And then, yeah, Ricky had a good season last year, and to Austin's point, it's just the last thing we remember, which was more schematic than anything, is asking that man to man up one-on-one. Is he cover 1 or cover 0 against the best receiver in college football, a top 5 draft pick tomorrow as an 18-year-old? And that was just too much to ask of the guy. So outside of that, he had a really good season. So I feel great about our 1 and 2 there. And then, yeah, Colton Hood, he had a decent coverage grade at Colorado. But to be completely honest, I don't know if I trust their coaching staff to get that guy to play to his level, you know, and I think we've seen that from him in practice, is that he may not have had the best, you know, guys around him to help coach him up, which is crazy because Deion's a Hall of Fame corner, but like he's not that involved with the secondary and coaching. So I think what we've been able to see Banks do with our secondary and everything, I think I feel good about these guys. And, you know, McMurray adding some depth coming back in his second season in the system. So these corners, it's hard not to feel pretty confident what they can do, especially if McCoy plays like he did last year or even close. And, you know, one thing that I know Austin talks about a lot too is the volatility at the corner position is also tough, because you can't just fully expect him to be exactly the same, because year to year, even Darrelle Revis had a season where he's giving up a few more catches than he on average, one of the best NFL corners ever. So take that with a grain of salt as well, that even if McCoy has a few plays that may look a little worse, doesn't mean he's not the same guy. That could just be the volatility of playing one of the most difficult positions in football.
And coming back from injury, obviously it's going to be tough to exactly reproduce his season last year. But we are still high in this group. Sam in the chat here says Colton Hood is Jermod 2.0. Love to hear that take. You know, I think we're pretty high in Colton Hood as well. And Ricky Gibson up 21 pounds this season. So it sounds like Ricky Gibson's put on some muscle. Appreciate you bringing that in the chat here, Sam. He also says if Boo gets his head out of his rear, then I fully expect the secondary to be top 3 in the nation. I'd love to see that happen, Sam, because we do have a lot of returning guys, a lot of good guys here.
Yep.
Austin, what do you think about that take? You think we can be one of the top secondaries in the country?
Yes, I agree with that, and we'll get into the nickelbacks because I mean, Boo played that nickelback position last year. And listen, the Boo story, we covered it, right? We covered it in the offseason, Blake. He's playing here, so I'm hoping we can just move on and he can play now, and we just focus on the football. Like that's what we want to focus on at this point. Even though some things have transpired. And Boo was really good in that star position last year, right? I mean, he was really good as a true freshman, coming in immediately, moving him around the defense. He was really impressive. And so I expect him, even though he has missed a lot of camp, I expect him to, take another step forward, playing that position. And then they also, our lads had Jordan Thomas also as a nickelback, a guy that's battling injuries, right? He's also played safety. Again, another guy that they move around. I don't know what his availability is going to be. People have questioned his availability all through the offseason, so I'm not sure how much he'll play. But I expect Boo to handle that nickelback role pretty well.
Dakota, you agree with that take on the nickelbacks and Boo Carter?
Yeah, I think he's here, and I think we got to give him the benefit of the doubt now that he's in practice. He's back with the team. He's been putting the effort in. That he will be the same guy that he was last year, and take a step forward. Because as Austin's point, he was doing that as a true freshman. And nickel's become a very difficult position to play in football because of how much teams line up wide. That slot corner spot is really important, and we call it star. A lot of teams have their specific name for it, but it's because you kind of have to be a utility guy where you're going to be moving around more than anybody. The corners, you play side to side, and it's Boo's having to move around. As a true freshman, being able to do that is really impressive. So excited to see him come back as a sophomore and see what he can become. Thomas is interesting because this time last year we were like Dawson's point, and what your all show was, you're looking at the secondary being like oof, and then Thomas went down with that knee injury, and everybody was kind of like, oh gosh, like what are we going to have from the secondary? So now it's great to be in a position where him coming back from injury, we're like, if he can play, that's great. But if not, we're fine. That's a good position to be in. But would love to see him get out there and play because I think he had a lot of hype going into last year. And I think it'd be nice to have a little depth. And for Boo's sake on offense, if we have a guy we can rely on behind him, that gives us more flexibility to throw Boo in on some offensive plays. So,
which we've talked about. Boo is hoping to get some snaps on offense. We might see him at receiver. We might see him at running back. He took a few snaps at running back in practice, from what I understand. So Kevin saying here in the chat that last he heard Jordan Thomas is applying for a medical red shirt. So that'll be interesting there. Yeah, interesting. Rick saying. Sorry, one second. Also, Rick saying in the chat, he's calling out the sports media, saying, "Can we call it blue chip percentage instead of a ratio?" Because so I guess 1-to-1 ratio, Rick, right?
Rick, the thing that killed just real quick on Rick's point on that, that killed me when all that blue chip stuff came out because they just go based on what you had in your recruiting classes. They don't even go based on who's actually on the roster. So if you had, let's say in 2023, you had, 35 stars come in, which has never happened, by the way. But if you had 35 stars come in, but they all transferred out the next season, that report on the blue chip ratio doesn't actually even take that into consideration. They just take into consideration the recruits that came in. They don't actually take into consideration the recruits that went out. But we are still over the 50%. But yeah, going back to the Boo, we really should have touched on him on offense. I actually forgot to bring him up. But I am interested to see if they're still going to do that because he was still being eased into practice the last we saw. So I don't know how much of an opportunity he's going to be given on offense. It's interesting. I think he could do it. I think he has the athleticism for it. And it might be something we see later on down the season if I had to guess. But But yeah, I mean, as far as the corners and the nickelbacks, I'm extremely confident in the group. I am. They might lack depth a little bit, but the high end talent's absolutely there. And I agree. I think Sam made the point in the chat. I think it could absolutely be a top 3 secondary, at the very least top 10 in the nation because of the experience, and we've seen it from these guys, right? We've seen all these guys play good, or to Jermon McCoy has played great elite football. So yeah, I'm really confident in the corners.
Yeah, absolutely. But now, Dakota, what about these safeties, right? We've got a couple new faces at safety. However, again, a couple guys like Caleb Beasley, hearing a lot about him. What's your outlook on the safeties part of the secondary?
It's definitely the weakest section, right? And that's due to the elite play at the other positions a bit. But with Turrentine, he's been here for a while and he's played okay, but he's never. I just don't think he's ever really been that good. And then Beasley's coming in as a true sophomore and expecting to get a lot and have to start now, and replace with Jacoby Thomas last year, who kind of came onto the scene and played really well and was kind of the tone setter.
Miss that guy.
That dude was hitting guys left and right. So that's something I think we could be missing from this second, or in the the safety specifically, because that is part of the strong safety. Like the designation of that is also kind of going away because of the way defenses are run now. But we need a guy like that can hit. So I think that these are the ones that are the most intriguing to me. And I think if there's anywhere where we feel weak and you could see a play happen where you're like, is something deep over the middle of the field, where if one of these safeties aren't in position, because I feel good if we're playing like cover 3 or quarters, that our 2 corners are going to have that locked down. But that's probably the weak spot in the defense. But Beasley has not played much. So that's the thing, is like he can go out there and play well. Exactly. So he could go out there and immediately look substantially better than Turrentine and look like one of our best secondary players. We don't know that yet, but on paper, at least, it's the weakest of this group. But they could still take a step forward and be a key contributor.
Austin, you agree with that, Tech?
Yeah. So Caleb Beasley, Blake, it was interesting to me. I didn't even know he moved over to safety, Blake. We talked about this a few weeks ago. He just randomly showed up as the starting safety on the Our Lads depth chart out of nowhere. I mean, it was literally out of nowhere, dude. And he's a true sophomore, very young guy, 4-star corner prospect. So and listen, Our Lads isn't gospel. We won't know the depth chart until we see the Syracuse game. But listen, it's interesting. It seems to me, if you move him to safety as such a young player, you want that guy on the field. That's what it tells me. So I am very interested to see his play. Like Dakota said, it's a question mark. So he could be great, he could be bad. We don't know yet. And then Turrentine, again, an experienced guy who has been solid. I would say solid at best. And then Farouk. Interesting, again, true sophomore. And I just emphasized how we're recruiting a lot of linebacker, Blake. We're also recruiting a lot of safety right now, brother. We have about 4 or 5 safeties committed in this upcoming class. So that kind of tells you what the staff thinks that we need depth at, and it's probably safety. But again, overall at the secondary, dude, extremely confident in their play. My prediction is, I'll say it right now, just like I said it last year, Blake. I gave my predictions on the position groups. This, I think, is our best position group on our team.
Love to hear it. Far cry from last year when we were saying secondary was going to be the worst position group on the team in general, not just the defense. Now we're talking about it being the best position group, especially because of those guys, Colton Hood, Jermon McCoy, Boo Carter, everyone there. So love to hear that. Folks, we are moving right through the show. We're at 2 hours. Man, what a marathon of Vol talk.
Let's go, baby.
We appreciate you guys hanging out. We've been holding steady with our viewership, so we really appreciate you guys hanging around. Please continue the conversation in the chat here. Sam saying they'll for sure be more athletic than our boy Will Brooks. Man, Sam, what a shot. Can't believe you take a shot at Will Brooks. But
he kind of cooking.
And Austin kind of point too, because Austin brings up with the Caleb Beasley thing is really interesting for moving corner to safety, because it tells 2 things. 1, they thought he was good enough to not sit behind those corners, and 2, he probably has some pretty good ball skills. So
Yep.
they're wanting him back there to be a middle fielder to probably get some plays on defense. So and to Sam's point, doing it in a more
He's gonna be
athletic
more
way.
athletic. He's gonna be more athletic
Man,
than Will Brooks. Hey, Will Brooks was
uh,
great, Blake. Listen, Casey
listen,
Clausen,
that's a
man of the
great,
year last year. Great
yeah.
transition.
Great transition, great segue. Okay, Sam, you couldn't have. We again, this is an unscripted show, folks. We, as you can tell, we don't have a script. We don't, other than choosing our topics. We don't, and of course, the boys there, Dakota and Austin, they've got their numbers and their stats, but otherwise, we don't script this show or anything like that. And we definitely did not plan that, but Sam, that's a great segue because Will Brooks was in fact our Casey Clausen Award winner last year. And so we're going to transition now from the position group preview to our Vol Talk Awards. Okay, so we're going to talk about the Casey Clausen Award as well as all of our other self-dubbed Vol Talk Awards in our watch list for this season. Real quick, I just want to take a second to say thank you all so much for the support so far on the live stream. Again, we're 2 hours in, baby. We still got a lot more Vol Talk to go. If you can't catch the whole live show, no problem. Catch it after the fact. That is all good. Drop us a comment if you're watching after the live show has ended. We appreciate you guys hanging out with us, jumping in the chat. Please continue to jump in the chat. Austin, this is going to be a fun section. I love the Vol Talk Awards. So last year, again, we're 1 year. We are 1 year into the Vol Talk podcast. And again, we can't thank everyone enough for the support. But 1 year ago, we were talking about the season preview for 2024. And then throughout the season and towards the end of the season, we got the idea to create our Vol Talk Awards. So the Vol Talk Awards, folks, are this. We essentially, they're very prestigious. Okay. They're given out only on this show. That's why they're called the Vol Talk Awards. Very prestigious. Everyone in the media, is waiting to see who's going to win the Vol Talk Awards. But these are the Vol Talk Awards. Okay, we've got the Peyton Manning Award, who is the best offensive player. So as dubbed by the Vol Talk podcast here, myself, Austin, and Dakota. We've got the Reggie White Award, the GOAT, Peyton Manning, and then the GOAT, Reggie White. Reggie White Award is for the best defensive player on the year. We've got another GOAT, Eric Berry, and that is the award for the best freshman for the year. Austin, we've got some potential for some breakout freshmen this year, right? And then, of course, my personal favorite, the Casey Clausen Award. Now, some of you, to Sam's point about athleticism, some of you might get the wrong idea about the Casey Clausen Award, okay? The Casey Clausen Award is not awarded to a guy like Will Brooks who has sneaky athleticism, okay? That's not what we're talking about.
But he was underappreciated last year, Blake. So it does go to Will Brooks.
It does. We are talking. The Casey Clausen Award is the underappreciated player of the year, right? So I talk a lot about Casey Clausen on this podcast. A kid growing up in the '90s, and then of course the early 2000s watching football. Casey Clausen was a great Tennessee quarterback. Doesn't get enough love. So the Casey Clausen
the last QB
Award
to beat Florida and Bama on the road, by the way, in the same season.
That is correct. So Casey Clausen, underappreciated player award. And then we've got the Juwan Jennings Award. One of Austin's favorites that's just the dog. Who's the dog on this team? Who's absolutely out there giving his all for Tennessee each and every day? And then we will also this year be adding a breakout player. So one breakout player for the offense and one breakout player for the defense. So who's going to be that breakout player? So, folks, we're now going to do our watch list for these awards. Now, gentlemen, in the interest of time, I'm going to allow you all to give your watch list. I'm not going to comment too much outside of maybe a few names on these awards. But let's start from the top of the list here. Let's start with the Peyton Manning Award. That goes to the best offensive player. So, at the end of this season, Dakota, who do you think who's on your watch list for potential best offensive players of the year?
So I think it's easy to go to the quarterback position, right, and go to Joey Aguilar. I think I've gone back and forth on this. I'm not gonna lie, I've gone back and forth on most of these where I'm sitting here and I talk myself into a guy. I originally wanted to go Deshaun Bishop, which I know is probably a
Wow.
bit of a bolder one, but I love him and the way he played last season in a minimal capacity. If he just stayed healthy, I think he could take over as kind of that running back one and dominate. And we leave the season saying that. But that being said, I think I just have to go default to Joey Aguilar. And to be honest, it'd be a statement award win for him as well. Because after Nico, the situation to leave this season saying our best offensive player was the guy we got because you left, I think we would all be ecstatic with that.
Austin, what do you think?
Man, I was actually also gonna go Aguilar. I thought Dakota would switch it
Oh,
up.
wow.
I think it is gonna be Aguilar, man. I think we're gonna get better play from the quarterback this year, Blake. I just do. I mean, one last thing I'll say about Aguilar that I forgot to mention earlier, Blake. It's very comparable to the Hendon Hooker Joe Milton situation, right? Joe Milton had all the tools. He won the job initially in 2021. He can throw a ball 90 yards. By the way, if you compare Joe Milton's tools to Nico, you take Joe Milton's tools every time. Well, Nico also has the tools, right? He was the big toolsy guy with the athleticism and all that stuff. Joey Aguilar's the underdog, right? Just the guy that puts his head down and works. And listen, it worked out with Hendon. Hendon ended up being better than Joe. Now we'll see. Can Joey Aguilar end up being better than Nico, the former 5-star? I think he will be, man. I think he'll be our Peyton Manning player of the year.
I love to hear that, boys. I got to go with Mike Matthews. I really hope Mike Matthews has a breakout year. So that's hopeful on my part. That's obviously a big leap because we don't know much about Mike Matthews yet, but I'm hoping for Mike Matthews. Cajun Vol jumping in the chat here. We appreciate you coming back, Cajun Vol. He says that he's hopeful that we have a Joey A award after this year. The unexpected white horse that puts foot to rear out of nowhere. I would love to have that Vol Talk award, Cajun Vol. That's a great point. Definitely hoping that Joey Aguilar has a fantastic season. So, gentlemen, I like that prediction there. And then we've got Jace jumping back in. David Sanders will win the freshman one. I like that.
Spoiler
Jace.
alert.
Spoiler alert there. David Sanders. Hey, Jace is an Ohio State fan, so he's big on David Sanders. So I like that. But gents, let's move to the Reggie White Award, Best Defensive Player. Austin, Minister of Defense, Reggie White, huge award here. Who's going to be the best player at the end of the year on defense?
One of my favorite all-time players, Reggie White, man. Last year, Jermon McCoy won this award, Blake. He's back on this team, so he's an absolute phenomenal candidate for this. And you know what? I'll say, you know what? I'm going to go Joshua Josephs. I was between Joshua Josephs and Jermon McCoy. I think Josephs will continue to break out and be an elite run defender and take a step forward, rushing the passer. So, yeah, I'm going to go Joshua Josephs as my Reggie White player of the year.
I love it. I hope to see that from Joshua Josephs for sure. Sticking with the D-line there, though, the motif of the award, Reggie White, Dakota, what do you think? Is it going to be Joshua Josephs, someone else on the D-line? What do you got?
Yeah, I love the pick there. I wanted to be slightly different here. Jamad is also the watch. I think it's easy to kind of predict him if he plays the same, but going in a different direction, my belief in a guy taking a big step forward this year, and I'm going with Arion Carter. I think that he solidifies himself as the leader of this defense and makes an impact flying around. And I think that as a junior, 4-star, he could be that guy. That's who I'm going with to win the Reggie White Player of the Year, Arion Carter.
Love to hear. Dakota, I was thinking about the linebackers, and I would love to have a linebacker absolutely break out this season. I love the linebacker position, so I love that prediction. I'm going to throw out a dark horse and say Colton Hood, man. Dark horse and Colton Hood.
It's matching the transfer corner, winning the job.
Yeah,
that's right. Exactly what just happened last year with McCoy.
Exactly. That's I'm going with that trend again, or maybe it ends up being back-to-back award-winning years for Jermon McCoy. Again, folks, these are very.
By the way.
Exactly. These are very official, very prestigious awards, the Vol Talk Awards. So,
Yeah,
if
definitely.
Jermon McCoy can win back to back, then that would be huge. Catching up on the chat here, Sam says Joey Aguilar's INT rate in 2023, when on a decent team, was better than Garrett Nussmeyer, and Sellers and Lagway's seasons last year. That's an interesting point there, gentlemen. So honestly, look, it would be a huge headline if Joey Aguilar has a fantastic year this year. And I love y'all's prediction about Joey Aguilar winning the Peyton Manning Award, man. Everyone's ride or die with Joey Aguilar, baby. You love to hear it. So Sam says he's going to ball out and surprise people. Love that prediction from you, Sam.
Love
there
it.
in the chat. Bender of Strings says, just call it the Slow White Guy Award. Why are you fronting? Man, Bender of Strings, dude. Listen, Casey Clausen Award has nothing to do with athleticism, man. It has sneaky athleticism, man. It has everything to do with being underappreciated, brother. That's it.
And it
That's all
just
it
so
is.
happens the sneaky athletic guys are underappreciated, dude. They're underappreciated at times.
It just so happens, and it just so happens that Will Brooks won it last year. Let's continue down this list here, gentlemen. Austin. Again, this list is just full of greats, right? So
Yes,
the
that's the point.
Eric Berry Award. That's the point. Eric Berry Award. Now, listen, folks. Let's just be clear. No one will be Eric Berry. Okay.
Never.
Eric Berry is the greatest of all time. All right. But Eric
The
Berry
fact that
Award
we
for the
let
best
players wear 14, by the way, Blake, that's a
is
travesty.
kind of it's
They
kind
need
of
to hang
blasphemous.
that
It
one in the
truly is.
rafters. Let's be honest.
Let's get it in the rafters. Let's get it up there. Retire that number. But with that being said, best freshman Dakota, Jace kind of threw out David Sanders earlier. What do you think, Dakota?
pick.
Who's going to be the best freshman?
Yeah, it's tough because this one we don't have a ton of freshmen set to get a big role going into the season, especially on defense. There's a lack of guys to even kind of pinpoint there. And at the end of the day, I did go David Sanders. I think that he'll make an impact at tackle, and it'll be noticeable because he's playing so much. And I think we'll leave the season being very glad that we've moved on from John Campbell. Yeah, no shade to him, but I think we'll feel a lot better about our tackle position and knowing we've got this guy for the future. And then my other candidate is Travis Smith Jr. I like him a lot of the freshman because I think he's flashed in camp and a guy that I think you get the ball in his hands, he can make a few plays. So I think we could see a situation where he caught a few short passes and turned them into big plays and made an impact enough to say, okay, this freshman's legit. But I'm going to go with David Sanders to win it.
Love it. Agreeing with Jace there. Austin, do you agree with Jace and Dakota here? David Sanders Jr.
If I had to predict one, I am going to say David Sanders, but I will throw out one defensive name. It's a guy I mentioned earlier, Isaiah Campbell. Camp hype, highly touted recruit, a guy you could see make some plays on the D-line this year. So I'll throw him out as well. And then just to touch on the receivers, even though I do think at the end of the year we will end up saying David Sanders, Blake. Amari Jefferson, Dakota shouted out Travis Smith or Braylon Staley. Any of those three guys I could see as redshirt freshmen or true freshmen end up winning this award at the end of the year. I think any of those guys could be pretty productive in the offense.
Love to hear it. A lot of potential in these freshmen here. Bender Strings clarifying. Yeah, we guessed that you were referring to the Casey Clausen Award there, Bender Strings. We appreciate you. It is underappreciated player, and we are getting to it right now. Actually, that is a great segue.
Let's
Casey
go.
Clausen Award. So let's talk about the Casey Clausen Award. Last year's winner was Will Brooks. Again, underappreciated. Will Brooks had a fantastic season and just was kind of underappreciated all around. Regardless of any other characteristics, he was simply underappreciated. Austin. So Casey Clausen Award for underappreciated player of the year. Who you got on your watch list?
Miles Kitselman, brother, fits the bill. He was a candidate last year as well. Listen, team leader, dude. First one in, last one out. That really is Kitselman, though. I mean, that truly is Kitselman's game, right? He is the leader. He is the guy, and I think he is. I think he's already underappreciated, and I think he'll end up taking the Casey Clausen Man of the Year award.
For any of you who aren't super familiar with the players, there's no need. Don't look up a picture of him. Okay, don't worry about it. Austin's strictly speaking on characteristics of the player. Fits the bill, says Austin. Dakota, who do you think fits the bill for a potential underappreciated player this year?
Yeah, so I'll start with my dark horse candidate is Wendell Moe Jr.
Okay.
Because I think he'll make an impact on the interior. But I'm going to go Jeremiah Thielander.
Oh, don't go Thielander, dude. Come on, man.
I'm going Thielander. I'm predicting Arion Carter to break out and win the best defensive player. But I think because of that, it makes it easy to underappreciate the guy next to him, helping him succeed. So I'm going to go Thielander to win the award. I think he's going to make plays, and I think Arion Carter will steal the show enough that we'll sit there and kind of forget that the other guy out there is also making plays.
Oh, man.
Good stuff. Casey
Thielander also fits the bill, Blake. He fits the bill. Wendell Moe is a great shout out, though. The O-line
that is a good shout.
Does not get enough love. Exactly. I also had Cooper Mays on my list last year, my short list of guys, because the O-line doesn't get enough love, especially those interior offensive linemen. So Wendell Moe is definitely a great shout for Casey Clausen Man of the Year.
Definitely like that. Yeah, we got to show some love to the O-line guys. Rick in the chat says Jackson Ross for the Casey Clausen Award. Another good shout out there.
Bill, brother.
Okay. That's your Casey Clausen Award. Now, folks, let's move to the Juwan Jennings Award, the Dog Award.
My favorite.
So, who's got that dog in him? Austin, correct me if I'm wrong. Did Brew win that award last year for us? I believe Brew McCoy won last year for us to be the dog.
Brew did win last year.
And that was interesting, right? Because Brew was kind of almost a 1-for-1 comparison to Juwan Jennings. Not quite, but he had kind of as a receiver, physical receiver, great blocker, that kind of thing. So fit the bill. But Austin, what do you think this year? Do we continue in that trend of receivers winning this award, or who do you got for the Juwan Jennings Dog Award?
I'm going to shout out another guy that Dakota shouted out for, I would say, a bigger award earlier. But I'm going to go Arion Carter, man. I think he is a dog, dude. He's got that in him. He's the leader on the defense. And he plays with a lot of dog. He did last year. Honestly, he might have been a guy on my short list, but Brew was kind of just like the no doubter last year.
Right.
And really, in the wide receiver room in particular, Blake, we need to replace that, right? Like, we need to replace that kind of guy who's willing to be the lead blocker on those screen plays and things of that nature. But yeah, I got Arion Carter winning it this year.
What about you, Dakota? Who you got for the dog this year?
Another short list for Wendell Moe again, where I think he could be on this a year from now. But Austin and I flipped our awards here. So I'm going Joshua Josephs for the Dog Award.
Love it.
And that's because the guy is an elite run defender. And to do that is selfless and just making plays for your team. And you're setting the tone, setting the edge. He is fantastic at that. And it takes a dog to be an elite run defender. It just does. You desire contact. You want the guys around you to make plays because of what you're willing to stick your nose out there and do. So yeah, Joshua Joseph's going to be the Juwan Jennings Award winner for me.
I love to hear that. I also love what Kevin's putting in the chat here.
Yes.
Kevin's saying, and Sam's agreeing. Kevin says that Bishop for the Dog Award, the Juwan Jennings Dog Award, and Sam agrees with him because he's put on 15 pounds of muscle. What do y'all think about that, Deshaun Bishop?
Love that shout out. Love the Sean Bishop story, dude. I'll keep reiterating a 3-star doesn't typically beat out 4 stars. Okay. And he did it immediately coming off injury. His true freshman year, he was hurt his entire true freshman year. Coming off injury, beats out Peyton Lewis and Cam Seldon last year to be RB2, local guy, not a ton of athleticism, perceived athleticism coming out of high school, but was really good in high school, Blake, really productive in high school. So I would love that. I think Deshaun Bishop absolutely is a guy that could win that Juwan Jennings Award.
Love to hear. Also, love Rick's shout out here. Max Gilbert is a dog. Austin, we jumped over special teams because
but Gilbert can play Austin, now.
He can, but Austin has declared that special teams is dead. Austin hates special teams, thinks it's trash. Dakota, what do you think? What did you have to say about Deshaun Bishop there?
No, I agree. I mean, he made my list very closely to just winning the Peyton Manning Award, where I think he could. And if he did play that way, I think he's in line to win the Juwan Jennings at that point, because that means he did play with absolute grit and took over. And I forgot who it was earlier that mentioned how good he is in pass protection, and that takes a dog to do. So I love that shout by Sam.
Love
or
it.
by Kevin. Sorry.
Yep, Kevin and Sam both agreeing on Deshaun Bishop possibly getting the Juwan Jennings Dog Award. And now, finally, gents, folks, keep sticking around. We got our season predictions coming up here in just a moment. But finally, gents, let's talk about one offensive breakout player and one defensive breakout player.
Love
Dakota,
it.
who do you think is going to break out on offense, and who do you think is going to break out on defense this year?
I think offense is basically your pick of the poison from receiver. It's which guy you think's going to break out. I'm going to go. I want to believe that Mike Matthews is the one to do it, but I'm going to go with Braylon Staley. I'm going to say that Staley's the one that breaks out and makes an impact immediately. In the limited sample we got of him last year, which was even smaller, he looked pretty good, man. He did. And I think coming back, putting on some more muscle as you do in the offseason and getting that redshirt season under his belt, I think he has the opportunity to break out and as a redshirt freshman make a big impact in this passing game.
Love it. Austin, what do you think?
Yeah, I love that shout for Braylon Staley. Blake, I'm going to lend a hand to a guy that we picked on a lot last season, okay? Lance Hurd is going to be my breakout player.
Shocker.
I think Lance Hurd has the potential to be a lot better this season, okay? And again, this is something I'm going to say because listen, we spent a lot of time last year, Blake, giving him a hard time, right? A lot of time. And I want him to be better. We need him to be better. Okay. So I think Lance Hurd is going to be a breakout and he's going to be better on offense. At least I'm hoping.
Love it. What a turnaround from the Vol Talk podcast. From catching strays all season long, even throughout the off season. We continued to point to Lance Hurd in negative ways, and now Austin's.
But now it's all positive, baby. He's going to break out.
All positive, baby. So breakout player on offense. I love to hear it. Dakota, what about defense? Who's your breakout player for defense?
Yeah, so I have a couple guys I want to shout out as watches for me that I didn't. Colton Hood was one of them, and then Ross as the other. Jordan Ross could very well be it, but I'm going to stick to my gun of Tyree West having an Omar Norman Lott-like season when his senior year gets his full-time starting job out there. And as that kind of 3-tech interior / edge guy, I think he's going to make it plays in the run game. And I think he'll break out as a bit more of a pass rusher now that he's getting more opportunity. And I think he'll replace what we lost in Omar Norman Lott this season.
Love to hear that. Omar Norman Lott honestly could have just as well been a Casey Clausen guy last year. Man, I don't know if we appreciated him quite enough. We gave him a lot of love, but man, he deserved even more love. So would love to see a season like that from West. Austin, who you got for your breakout defensive player? What's the watch list there?
Loved all those shout outs. Tyree West is a great guy to throw out because a guy that in a limited sample made a ton of plays last year. I feel like he was making an impact every time he was on the field. I am going to go Jordan Ross, though. I think they have a plan for Jordan Ross because there was not even any talk of him leaving. A lot of times when 5-stars don't get a ton of playing time, are they going to transfer? Are they going to go find somewhere else? Again, a guy that was a top 10 player in his class, like an elite level prospect that we got on the defensive line. And I think he's going to break out this year on the edge.
Love to hear that. I love the fact that both of you are shouting out some D-line guys because I definitely want to see that play continue at an elite level on the defensive line. So love it all around, boys. That is our watch list for all of the Vol Talk awards. So all of you current listeners, you new listeners, honestly, I don't know if anyone is in. Please shout out in the chat if you are, but I don't know if anyone is around right now from
last year.
Absolute day one. Again, folks, this is the 1-year anniversary. We didn't plan it that way. It just so happened that this is the 1-year anniversary. We did the season preview for the 2024 football Vols last year on August 24th. So 1 year anniversary of the Vol Talk podcast. So I don't know if anyone's around from day one from that show. But man,
Massive
what
shout
a
out if
ways
you
we've
are.
come. Massive shout out if you are. But please, folks, stick around this season. At the end of the season, what we're going to do is we're going to revisit these awards, and once the season is over, we're going to actually award. We're going to award these to these players based on their performance in the season. So if you haven't already, of course, like the video, jump in the chat, but please go ahead and subscribe to the channel. If you're not already subscribed, we really would appreciate it. And while we're at it, go ahead and follow us on Spotify as well. Our Spotify, Austin, has been growing like crazy the past couple weeks. We really love that. Spotify is a great way to, especially for a show like this, where it's going to be 3 hours long, baby. You might need to listen to some of it while you're commuting to work, coming home from work. So follow us on Spotify for that. And again, we appreciate everyone jumping in the chat here. Bender of Strings jumping back in. He says, who will win the Jackson Lampley Lay Down Lineman Award?
That's a
I
good
don't know
shout,
about
man. That's a good shout.
that.
I don't know who will be the PAT injury guy this year, but we'll see.
We will see. Indeed. So, again, folks, like the video. Please share it with your friends if you haven't already. Send it to a fellow Vol fan. We love the momentum that we have. But speaking of momentum, we have finally made it to the end of the show, gentlemen, and that means it is finally season prediction time.
Let's
Prediction
go,
time.
baby.
So this is fun. You know what? It's all been talk until now. At the end of the day, it comes down to winning. How many games are we going to win this season? So what we're going to do is we're going to first, I'm going to get Austin and Dakota's thoughts on what is the ceiling for this team and what is the floor for this team. Okay.
Okay.
And Austin, Dakota, I want to start with the floor. Okay. I'm an optimistic guy, baby. Go damn Vols. That's all I know. That's all I know, baby, is go Vols. So let's get the floor out of the way. Let's talk about the pessimism. And then we'll talk about the ceiling, what the absolute best could be for this team. And then after all that's said and done, all three of us will give our 3 official record predictions for the year. So, and Jay says in the chat here before we hop into this, happy birthday, or excuse me, happy anniversary to Vol Talk. And he says he loves it. Appreciate it, Jace. We appreciate you jumping in here. Man, really appreciate the support in the chat. But yes, 1 year anniversary, but now let's give our season predictions. So, Dakota, I'm going to start with you. What is the floor for this team? What do you think the worst case? Let's get it out of the way. Rip the Band-Aid off. What's the worst case scenario?
There's a wide range of outcomes, but I originally had a lower one, but I keep talking myself into the fact that Heupel's baseline since he's been here has been higher than I think I expected, especially with some of the coaching we've had in the past, where we've had 4-8, 3-7 seasons. And looking at our schedule, I landed on, I think, 7-5, to be honest. I don't think 6-6. 6-6 would be kind of an abysmal season. So I like wheels fall off. Anything below that, things have just gone so poorly, you almost can't even evaluate it. So I would go with 7-5 as the floor, which would mean losses to the big 3 of Georgia, Florida, Bama, and then probably losing to Oklahoma at home, and then having that baffling road loss of either Mississippi State or Kentucky.
Would hate for that to be the case, but so it could be worse. A lot of folks, think possibly 6-6 could be the floor. If again, in an absolute worst case scenario, right? If all of these question marks that we've been talking about on each position group, if we end up on the bad side of the question mark, then we could be that. But at 7-5, I won't like it. I'll hate it. I'll be in a very bad mood all throughout the season. Vol Talk will not be very fun
chirpy
as it normally is. But Austin, what do you think your floor is? 7-5, does that hit the mark?
It does. I think he hit the nail on the head with that. You have the big three at Florida, at Bama, against Georgia and Neyland, which has been the only team, by the way, to beat us in Neyland since 2022. So in the 7-5 scenario, of course, you drop those three, and then I think you probably lose one of Oklahoma or Arkansas, more than likely Oklahoma. And then you have what Dakota has termed the baffling road loss in there at Mississippi State or at Kentucky in the 7-5 scenario. So yeah, I do think that's the floor. But again, we're talking floor here. So this is worst case scenario. 7-5, I think, is where we're at.
Worst case scenario. And Jace, I think Jace is kind of saying he's in that 6-6 train that I was talking about earlier. 6-6 being the floor, but I think I'm more on board with you boys. 7-5. Maybe I've got my orange tinted glasses on, but 7-5 is the floor. But we've got that Band-Aid off. Okay, so now let's talk about the ceiling. Jace thinks the ceiling is 10 wins. I feel like that might be pretty reasonable. But I don't know. We're talking about ceiling. What is the best case scenario, Austin?
I actually agree with Jason in the comments. I do think the ceiling is 10 wins. Just listen, whether we think Aguilar is going to be better than Nico or not, the plan was to have Nico this year, Blake. So we have to keep that in mind. The plan through the spring was to have Nico, and then we had to change that up. So we have to give the coaching staff a little bit of grace when it comes to that. And Blake, we have the tougher year of our schedule, where we're getting Bama and Florida on the road, which has been our kryptonites. We just got done saying how Casey Clausen is the last team or last guy to beat those guys on the road. So, with that being said, I do think the ceiling is 10-2. And in this scenario, Blake, I think we take care of business in all the games we're going to be favored in, which is basically every game at home and Mississippi State and Kentucky on the road. And then we win one of the big three, which I think is very possible, by the way. I do think it's very possible to win against Georgia and Neyland or on the road against Florida or Alabama. Listen, three things that we haven't done in a while, right, Blake? Three things we haven't done in a while. But I mean, we're 4-point underdogs in the Florida game. That's pretty close. We're 7.5-point underdogs against Georgia. And let me just say to the Alabama fans, that's the one I've got circled. We're 12.5-point underdogs in that game. That's exactly where we want Alabama, right, Blake? That's exactly where we want them. Yep. Thinking that's just an easy W that you're going to mark on the schedule. They're in for a rude awakening in that game. Let's not forget, Blake, 2023, we're up 20-6 in Tuscaloosa, Alabama. And then the calls came in, right? The referees that work in Tuscaloosa, by the way, they literally work and live in Alabama. All of a sudden, the calls start going way in one favor, Blake. And of course, it was against the Vols, right? Way in one favor. So we should really be on a 3-game winning streak right now with Alabama. Unfortunately, we're not. We got that 2023 game stolen from us, absolutely stolen from us. So yeah, that's the one I've got circled. 12.5-point underdogs. Interesting. Notable.
Kalen DeBozo, you are on notice, my friend. Dakota, what do you think is the ceiling? I love that from Austin there. Absolutely, Alabama, winnable. It's going to be tough, but it's winnable. 12.5, I don't know about that. Florida, honestly, we can't get that swamp monkey off our back, but that's winnable. Georgia, it's going to be at home. These are going to be tough games, but they're winnable. What's the season? I'm sorry, Dakota. What's the ceiling on the season?
Yeah, I originally wanted to think that like 11-1 was attainable, but I'm going 10-2 with Austin as well, and it's because of the scheduling this year, where to go 11-1 would require us to really accomplish 2 out of those 3 things that we've not done in a long time, which is beat Georgia at all and beat Alabama and Florida on the road. And I think asking to do 2 of those out of the 3 is a big ask, because that also excludes the baffling road loss that may be in there as well. So I think 10-2 is that would require no baffling road loss, most likely, and then beating one of those games and dropping the other 2. That being said, this past season we beat Florida and Alabama in the same season and still managed to have a 10-2 record because of a baffling road loss. So there's always the back end way of getting to that, which would feel worse because it's the same thing, right? Where we're sitting there at 10-2 and we lost to Mississippi State or something, and we're like, we were that close to being 11-1 again. That would be the worst case scenario, being 10-2. But I agree with the ceiling there, because with playing Florida, Bama on the road, two things we have not done in almost two decades. And then just not being able to beat Georgia in general. I think doing 2 out of those 3s is a big ask from old Joey Aguilar.
I will say, Blake, I have to shout out Cajun Vol here because he makes a phenomenal point when we're talking about the ceiling. If you get one of the big 3 early, which would be the Georgia game, then all of a sudden you're looking at this season completely differently, right, Blake? Like, if you beat Georgia in week 3, all of a sudden I'm like, okay, you can win any game on this schedule. Like, you can win any game on this schedule from here on out. So that's a fantastic point, and very notable. So, I mean, we're going to keep a pulse on it, brother.
And we are going to keep a pulse on it. And honestly, I'm going to go, well, I don't want to get too hype yet, but I like Sam's ceiling. Sam in the chat saying 8-4 is the floor. And then 11-1 is the ceiling. But you're right. Fantastic point from Cajun Vol there. Going to go up a little bit more in the chat here to Kevin. Kevin says if we go 6-6, immediately putting the staff on notice. I will say that will be pretty disappointing if we go. Honestly, 7-5 is going to be disappointing to me.
Yes,
6-6 would be some serious issues. But yeah, issues for sure. Cajun Vol saying if we beat Georgia, I think the whole outlook changes. Like you guys just said, absolutely. That is absolutely massive for sure. And as you noted, Austin, Georgia is the only team that has beat us at home since 2022. Heupel has been phenomenal at home. So Georgia, watch out. Again,
and
Sam
let's get
saying
Neyland rocking. By the way, let's get Neyland rocking for sure. Rocking.
Yes, let's break the decibel record once again. Sam saying that's right. Sam saying 8-4 is the floor. Anything below that would be massive injuries everywhere. Ceiling's 11-1. Again, I love this. We get Georgia early at home, like Alabama did last year. Oklahoma and Florida we get after their hardest stretches. That's a great point, right? Would love to be able to beat Florida in the swamp, Austin. And then Sam says that our schedule allows us to grow into the offense as well, which is definitely huge. And Cajun Vol agreeing there. And then Sam says, I've already bet the Alabama and Georgia spreads. Easy Alabama, by the way. Money.
Good bet against Alabama. They are currently, the sports books for the first time ever are currently giving away money right now with the Alabama spread. They are literally offering free money right now. I'm telling you, that game is going to be close at the very minimum. I do agree. I'll say I agree with Sam's 11-1 if what Cajun Vol says happens, right? If you beat Georgia, all of a sudden the ceiling does become 11-1, no doubt about it. And we know we all have that game circled right now. No question about that.
And the point Cajun Vol and I think Kevin made too about Georgia getting them early could be a good thing for us because they have had that rougher, like last year was Kentucky, remember?
Yep.
They looked terrible against Kentucky and managed to squeak that out early on. So,
and in general, Dakota, this Georgia team is not the same, people.
No.
Go pay attention. I asked Dakota this question the other day. 3 years ago, would you take Notre Dame to beat Georgia in a postseason environment, Blake? I mean, there's literally no scenario whatsoever where Notre Dame beats Georgia 3 years ago. That just never happens in a postseason environment. It just happened this past season. Georgia is not the same since the NIL era really kicked up. They're seeing the effects of that, just like Alabama is, and they're just not as deep as they were when they went back to back.
Absolutely. It's that, I mean, again, it's winnable and it's at home. So it absolutely changes the outlook on the season. It's definitely the early indicator of the season, right? Is how that Georgia game goes. Even if we lose it, is it close, right? Is it a close game?
Sure.
Is going to tell us a lot. Kevin saying that he agrees with Sam that 8-4 should be the floor. And Kevin says, he's kind of agreeing with it. He's saying that Georgia's always good for one lackluster performance. So would love for that to be at Neyland. But again, folks, unfortunately, I won't be able to make it to the game. Maybe Dakota and Austin can make it to the game. But regardless, we need to get Neyland rocking, like Austin said. Need to have it absolutely explosive on the Georgia week, the week 3 into the season. So boys, without further ado, let's finally get into our official season predictions. Now, I have put a poll in the chat. Okay, I put a poll in the chat. It only let me do 4 options, so I couldn't do all the options that I wanted to do. But I asked the chat, what is your record prediction for the 2025 Vols for the regular season? Of course, we're not talking postseason. And so far, right now, 10-2 is winning at 40%. I love
Some optimistic
the optimism.
listeners. I love it.
I love the optimism. However, I think I have a feeling I know what possibly both of your official season predictions will be. Dakota, you want to kick us off? What is your official record prediction for the Vols for 2025?
I'll defer to Austin. I'll let Austin go first.
I'll
let you go
okay.
first. I'm not changing mine, but I'll just let you
Okay.
go first.
Okay.
All right.
I have to touch on what Sam said in the chat real quick, Blake. Gunnar Stockton, Georgia's starting quarterback, has never played a road SEC game, and his first one's in Neyland. That's something else I would call notable. That's extremely notable. Because not only are you going into your first road environment ever, you're going into the toughest road environment in the country, by the way. Number 1, we take a backseat to no one. Neyland will be absolutely bumping against Georgia. And man, dude, I'm getting myself fired up, so I kind of want to change my prediction here with how fired up I am right now. And you know what? I'm going to, Blake. 10-2. Okay, 10-2. Joey Aguilar gets it done. We're beating Alabama on the road this year, brother. Mark it down right now. We're taking back the 3rd Saturday in October. Give me 10-2. Heupel takes care of everybody else.
What they got to make sense of is go Vols, baby. That's all I know. That's all I know is go Vols. Let's go. Changing the prediction right here in the moment. 10-2. And honestly, Austin, if we're beating Alabama on the road and we're coming in at 10-2, that's probably
it's playoffs,
in the
baby.
Playoffs.
We're back in the
it's playoffs, right?
Yes.
Unless something's crazy, that is in the playoffs. So love it, Austin. Official prediction, right? And folks, for those of you who are new to the Vol Talk podcast, Austin is somewhat of a Nostradamus when it comes to predictions. Good and bad. He tends to hit the nail on the head somehow, some way. But Dakota, what is your official prediction on the season?
Now I wish I hadn't deferred.
Now you wish you hadn't deferred.
Yeah, I wish I had gone first because I've hyped myself up too, but just for the sake of being different as well and having the different outlooks, I'm a bit of a negative in general. I mean, I'm probably one of the worst people to watch football games with in general because of how pessimistic. If somebody gets a first down, I'm ready to shoot myself. But I'm also very much prove me wrong type, and until I'm shown something, I have to believe it's going to happen again. And I'm going to give Heupel one of those this year, okay? I'm going to believe in him and predict he proves me wrong with one thing, but I'm going to predict that he doesn't with another. I don't know which one. I'm not going to make it definitive enough, but I'm going to say we go 9-3, and he either A, takes care of Alabama on the road, takes care of Florida on the road, or beats Georgia at home. He does one of those, or he eliminates the baffling road loss. Because that's the thing in my mind that I can't let. Because last year we were an abysmal showing against Arkansas, away from being a top 4 team in the country, most likely. And so I'm going to go 9-3, and we either lose those 3 games, and we either have a road loss in there that's terrible and beat one of them, or he eliminates the horrible road loss and we just lose those 3 games that we're not going to be favored in, and we go 9-3. But I want to believe in the 10-2. My heart is stringing at it to say we're going to go 10-2 and Joey Aguilar march us into the playoffs. But I'm going to stick with the 9-3.
And here's the deal: 9-3, I think, is exceedingly reasonable. And Austin, you've noted Vegas agrees. Vegas has us at 8.5. Okay,
8.5 over under.
Give Vegas either 8 or 9 wins on the season. I think 9-3 is reasonable. Jace in the chat here, Ohio State fans, that says that we're homers. Spoiler, brother, you're on the Vol Talk podcast.
Yeah, dude, that's what it is. And we got ourselves hyped up. And Austin Sellers in the chat here asking for an undefeated option on the poll here. So he wants to vote for undefeated. So yeah, I mean, we talked ourselves into it. Honestly, just in full transparency, Blake, before we got into predictions, I was gonna say 9-3, but then I thought about it and I was like, Ty Simpson's the Alabama starter? Give me the Vols. Are you kidding me?
I love it, dude. I knew you were gonna go 9-3. Again, 9-3 I think is reasonable. I knew you were gonna go 9-3, but I love the fact that you changed your prediction right here. And I hope, man, I would love for at the end of the season for us to be heading into the playoffs and at 10-2, based on your change here, your prediction. I'm gonna catch up on the chat real quick before I give my official prediction. Cajun Vol says Tennessee best upset chance with Coach Heupel. Total spread. Total spread is the sum of each team's yearly spreads over the last 4 years, where spread equals preseason rank minus final rank. So Cajun Vol says higher positive values indicate consistent overachievement. Tennessee 22, Washington 20, SMU 18, Arizona State 18. So Cajun Vol saying that pretty much everyone's underestimating the team and the coach since he started. And honestly, I'm on that train, Austin, because I have been saying that I think people are underestimating us, maybe even Vegas, honestly, because they're putting a little bit too much weight on this Nico thing. And Austin Sellers, again, like Austin said, Austin Sellers saying in the chat, no option for undefeated. Hey, brother, I wish I'd put it in there. I wish I could have. They only gave me 4 options. But I love that. I love that optimism. Jace, we are definitely homers for sure. Guilty as charged. Lynn saying, great show, guys. 6 days till showtime. Roll balls. That's right. 6 days till game time. And because of that, Austin, I am fired up. Okay. I am ready for football season.
Yes.
It is football time in Tennessee. You know what? Let's just freaking go with it, baby. 11-1. 11-1.
Oh my goodness. Whoa.
11-1. 11-1. Okay. Beating Georgia at home. Give me one of Alabama or Florida. Okay.
Oh my goodness.
You know what? Hell, give me both. I don't care. Undefeated 12-0. I don't care. I'm ready.
Oh, jeez.
I want to beat Alabama.
Blake's drinking all the orange Kool-Aid.
I want to beat the Gators at the Swamp, baby, because that's all I know is go damn Vols, baby. Right here, it says it on my board.
Blake, I will say, dude, I have to say, even though I think 11, Daniel's saying 12-0 in the chat, and we talked ourselves into this, I think we all would have been lower to begin the show. But listen, you said something earlier that was very notable to me, man. The line changed when Nico left. It was 9.5 before the Nico debacle, and I get it. I understand why Vegas would say, "Listen, he's a 5-star. You don't know. You have a question mark at quarterback. You have a new quarterback coming in that needs to learn the system in 2 months." But dude, we just sat here and convinced ourselves. It seems like Joey Aguilar is going to be more productive than Nico was last season. So if that's the case, then Vegas went the wrong way. You went from 9.5 to 8.5. Maybe it should have stayed at 9.5, or maybe it should have even went up. Now that might be crazy talk, but I'm just saying, it's like if we get better quarterback play, then the ceiling of this team is very interesting.
It absolutely is. Again, go freaking Vols, baby, as my board says. Okay,
love it. We're
high in the Vols. People are underestimating us, as Cajun's saying in the chat. Underestimating us. That's my point. I can't wait for football season, baby. 6 days until Syracuse, because I do think we're being underestimated. I think Joey Aguilar has a high ceiling in a Heupel offense. Man, I can't wait for kickoff, baby. Let me catch up on the chat here. Let me catch up on the chat instead of circling my board here. All right, so Jace says, too bad my game is on at the same time since they decided to schedule number 1 versus number 2 at 12 p.m. Hey, man.
Big noon. Eliminate it.
Yeah.
Get rid of noon, man. Nobody wants that.
Noon games. So dumb. And then Sam says over 8.5 at plus 120 is an easy bet. Sam, honestly, I think he's right. Honestly, I really do think 9-3 is pretty reasonable for sure.
It is.
Daniel Hightower in the chat. Daniel Hightower, 12-0. Love to see it. And then Jay says, I wouldn't sleep too much on Syracuse week 1. That's true. Syracuse is going to be a good team. Me and Austin have talked about that. Syracuse is a good team. Could be a very tough win. I'd be more scared at Syracuse than Arkansas, Kentucky. Yeah, and Syracuse could end up being like a Pittsburgh, right, from a few years ago, right? Just a scrappy kind of out of conference game there. So Jay says 11-1. Welcome to the playoffs again. I'd love it. Yeah, absolutely. And then Jay saying, speaking truth into that sure microphone, go Vols. Yeah, I might be screaming a little bit here, folks, but I'm just amped up. Okay, I'm amped up for the football season. So go
and
Vols.
it's getting late.
And Jay said,
you're part of the town,
oh,
by the way, Blake.
Dude, it's getting very late, and we're at almost 3 hours, baby, going on 3 hours on the Ball Talk podcast. Might be the longest episode yet, but we got Jace hyped up as well. Gentlemen, what are any final thoughts on this season preview here? Dakota, any last word here?
No, I mean, I think I'm hyped now too, man. I'm just ready for football. I'm ready. I hope I'm wrong. That's the thing. My entire prediction is just based on I want to be proven wrong but I need to see it, man. That's at the end of the day. I just need to see Heupel do the things he hasn't done yet, and he's come very close on a couple of them. And just you do that, and Aguilar could be the key to that, and him playing better than Nico did last year. But I'm excited to see what this team is. There's a lot of guys on to be excited about. There's a lot of guys that could break out. And I think Aguilar is going to be fun to watch. I think there's going to be moments where he makes some plays that are rougher than we've had from like Hooker, even Milton. But I think he's going to have some high-end plays that we're going to say, wow, we were missing that last year. So I'm excited, man. I'm just ready I'm ready for football. I'm ready for the Vols to be playing next Saturday. Unfortunately, at noon at the same time as the Texas-Ohio State game because of big noon kickoff. But I'm ready, man. I'm just ready.
Love it. Ready for football season indeed. We got O Schmidt in the chat here. I think this is the first time I've seen you, O Schmidt. Like the name there. Welcome to the Vol Talk podcast. Says got to split and get 2 W's against Bama, Georgia, Florida, and Oklahoma. Then just don't lose the inexcusable road game like Dakota's been talking about. We have the last few years. Absolutely. Very, very reasonable. But Dakota, man, I love it. You're hyped now. Even self-proclaimed Negavols are hyped, man, for the season. Dude, inject it straight into my veins, baby. 6 days away. Austin, what are your final thoughts on the season preview?
Yeah, listen, Dakota made a lot of good points there because we do have to see it, right? There's a ton of question marks on this team, specifically offensively. We have practically no returning starters outside of Lance Hurd and Deshaun Bishop played quite a bit last year and Chris Brazzell. But outside of those guys, there's not a lot of returning guys on this offense. But, Blake, that's not a bad thing. The offense was terrible at points last year. I mean, I was just watching a highlight clip earlier, Blake, against Kentucky. We had 7 points midway through the third quarter. It's like, what? 7 points against Kentucky? That seems unheard of in a Heupel offense. So the offense was terrible last year under Nico outside of the great Dylan Sampson. So if we can replace Dylan Sampson's production on offense, I think the offense is going to be a whole lot better, man. I think the pass offense is going to be a whole lot better, and we have a ton of returning guys on defense. And do I think the defense might take a slight step back? Possibly, but we don't know yet. We have to watch them play, and yeah. So I'm pretty. I say I'm optimistic on the show, but overall I'm pretty level-headed when it comes to my Vol fandom. I think 9-3 is extremely realistic. And listen, that just takes us flipping one of those big 3, Blake. One of those big 3. You can get one of Alabama, Florida, Georgia. Then you're back in the playoffs, baby. You're back in the dance.
Absolutely. I do want to say breaking news, except for the last second, I had convinced my fellow Vol fans 11-1 was tied with 10-2 in our poll for a good few minutes there. I had convinced all of our other listeners into the hype train going to 11-1, but so far right now the poll is sitting at 10-2 is the chat's prediction, and I love the optimism, baby. That's also Austin's prediction. And Austin is uncanny when it comes to getting things right. He was in the moment changing his prediction, but let's hope it comes true, baby. Vols 2025 season. We are here. It is football time, folks, in Tennessee. Last catch up on the chat here, and then we'll do our outro. Sam says we've beat our last 3 ACC opponents by an average of 31. Love that. We had a common opponent of NC State last year, and they only beat them by 7. Even no-show Nico beat them by 41. We roll Syracuse. I like that. Cajun Vol says, let's all pray for Nico's quick recovery behind the UCLA O-line. And then College Football Corner. How do you set up a live show like this? Me and my friends are thinking about starting one, hey, good luck, College Football Corner. We appreciate you checking it out. It's on YouTube, brother. You can start a live stream on YouTube. That's what we do. And then we use Discord to talk here between the three of us. So tell you what, it's fun, man. I love
figure it out, College Football Corner, anyone can figure it out. Let me just be completely honest with you, man.
That is absolutely true. We've got it figured out. So you know what? Anyone can figure it out for sure. But guys, look, we appreciate everyone jumping in the chat, checking out the show.
For 3 hours, by the way, Blake. Some people stayed here for 3 hours. Cannot thank you all enough for chatting with us, hanging out, watching our season preview. We're hyped for the season, and we know y'all are too. And go Vols, baby.
I got to get sappy for a minute for you guys, dude, because I'm so freaking happy for you, dude. Like, you guys, this has been so awesome where you guys started last year. This has been a ton of fun to be a part of and see you guys grow. So you guys deserve a lot of credit for how much work goes on behind the scenes that some may not know about, but you guys put on a fantastic show. So really appreciate what you all do.
Really appreciate that, Dakota. We really appreciate you joining on the show as well. I love these 3-man shows that we have. And sometimes, again, folks, as you saw a few weeks ago, Dakota fills in for me when I can't make it. I am halfway around the world right now, so definitely might happen on more than one occasion this season. So really appreciate Dakota jumping in there. Really appreciate this chat, man. Everyone jumping in here with the Go Vols game week, baby. And Kevin says it's really helped me pass my work day. Look, we couldn't do this without you guys. My wife jumping in the chat, Go Vols. We really appreciate you guys and your support. Please, again, like the video if you haven't already. Subscribe to the channel. Go follow us on Spotify. Shout out to our socials. Follow us on Twitter. Follow us on Instagram. Okay, we do some posts on there as well, and we'll continue to grow those channels as we go throughout the season. But man, it's been an awesome ride so far. It's been awesome growth. This live stream has been amazing. A ton of fun. 3 hours, Austin. Might be the longest episode ever.
And
but man,
like real quick, if y'all want more football talk, me and Dakota have a show called Stop the Takes. Okay, it's more NFL based. If you're an NFL fan, we cover NFL quite a bit. But if you liked what you saw from me and Dakota today, and you're a huge football fan, especially NFL fan, we'll have it linked down in the description. I really appreciate it if y'all could check that out for us.
Yeah, appreciate that. And I'm going to throw it in chat if that's fine, just a link to our channel for anybody that has that. But there it is. Yeah, we do NFL stuff. We'll be doing our season preview actually next week or this Thursday for NFL stuff. So if you got any NFL fans out there, we appreciate any support you guys could carry on over. And if you love Austin talking ball, man, that's the thing. Get more of Austin.
Hey, it's all yapping from the three of us, man. And yeah, I'm glad y'all brought that up. That was where I was headed next, was to shout out again Dakota for joining us. And again, as Austin and Dakota just mentioned, if you like the NFL, please check out their channel, Stop the Takes. It is an awesome channel. As the name implies, man, it takes out the takes from football. Let's just get back to talking ball, is Stop the Takes. And so if you're a fan of the NFL, check that out. That is from Austin and Dakota, their podcast over there. As they said, the link will be in the description. And folks, we appreciate you joining for this live stream. It's been a ton of fun. Here is the schedule for this season. Let me quickly talk about the Vol Talk podcast schedule. So, due to the current environment that I am in, we are pretty much restricted so that we are competing as little as possible with NFL and things like, and just when I can be awake and be able to do it. Our schedule for this football season for Vol Talk is we're going to be going live on Sundays at 11:30 Eastern. I know we're a little late today. Production team once again is really dropping the ball.
Running behind.
The production team is running behind. The production team is myself and Austin, mostly myself today, running behind. But 11:30 Eastern is going to be the time that we go live on Sundays. So every Sunday at 11:30 Eastern, we're going to review the game that just happened. And then on Tuesdays, probably not this week, Austin. I think we'll start next week, right? We'll start next week with our Tuesday shows. And our Tuesday shows at 8 p.m. Eastern will be a review, or I'm sorry, the game review is on Sunday. The game preview, so the coming game that Saturday, we will preview on our Tuesday show at 8, and we'll talk about midweek headlines and things like that. So 2 live shows a week, folks, during football season. 11:30 Eastern on Sundays, 11:30 a.m. Eastern on Sundays, that is, and then 8 p.m. Eastern on Tuesdays will be our 2 live shows during football season. And Austin, it's going to be a ton of fun.
It is, man. It's going to be fun covering every game. We're going to break it down in depth. And like you said, we might switch it up next season because Blake's away. The reason Blake's away, shout out, serving our country away halfway across the world. So really shout out to you, brother, for doing what you're doing. So yeah, had to shout you out. And yeah, I can't wait to cover the Vols, man. 2025 Vols.
I want to shout out Jace's last comment too. That's actually a really good idea, by the way. If you all created a Discord channel, like just Vol Talk, and then just share the link on everything where people can join and chat during games, I think that'd be really cool.
I think a lot of people would team on that, Blake.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, honestly, man, I think you maybe would just create like a channel or a server, and then if you just share the link and make it not private, you could just let anybody join it, and everybody could go in there and talk during games and stuff. I think you guys, that's pretty cool. Yeah, I have to look into that. That'd be cool.
That is a fantastic idea, Jace. Thank you for that idea. Absolutely love it. We are evolving the Vol Talk podcast, okay, folks? So once I do return home, little spoiler, little sneak peek, we are hoping to have a studio going back to, we used to be in person, Austin, but it was just a terrible setup. We have evolved since then. We're hoping to go back to in person once I get home. So we can't wait for that. But the Vol Talk podcast continues to evolve. That's a great idea, Jace, creating a Discord for Vol Talk Nation. And so, again, we love y'all. We appreciate your support. And, man, final word, go freaking Vols, baby. It is football time in Tennessee once again. Folks, it is 6 days until kickoff. We've got Syracuse coming on Saturday. So we will be reviewing that game next Sunday at 11:30 a.m. Eastern. That is when we will see you guys again. So until then, as always, baby, go freaking Vols.
GBO.